If you're watching on the listening to the podcast, you've gotten all this. If you're listening to the video, we've just started. I apologize to those on the stream. We have just gotten up and running. And we are here now, back on the show, on the stream. We apologize for the delay. So podcast, you got a little bit of a bonus there. Live on the stream, let's get back to what we were talking about. First and foremost, we are on the air at 1 today versus 7 o'clock, mainly because of the Super Bowl. We don't want to get in the way of that. Don't expect you to tune into Hoopsville while the game is on, and I wouldn't mind watching the big game myself either. Now, that won't be the case on February 28th, because on February 28th, we will, gosh darn it, be on the air despite the Oscars. It'll be Selection Sunday. 3 weeks from now, we'll be talking about who's in and who's out of the NCAA tournament. That is certainly a major factor to talk about, and so we will do so despite the Oscars. If you really want to watch the Oscars versus us that night, so be it. We're not going to get in your way, but we're going to be talking about who's in, who's out. We're going to prognosticate who we think is in and out. We'll talk to some of those who may be on the bubble as well. If you have questions for us, you're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA NABC studio. If you've got questions for us, you can tune in or join us on Instagram now at D3Hoopsville. You can also join us on Twitter at D3Hoopsville and hashtag Hoopsville. Join us on Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville and join us as well or email us, Hoopsville at D3Hoops.com. Because we're on earlier today, we have a number of things going on, including scores, and so we'll try and keep you up to date on those as we got some thrillers going on, including in the UAA, and Chicago is reeling, but not without some incredible finishes. Here's what's happened on the men's side at Rochester. Jake Fenley hit a three-pointer with 1.4 seconds left. Chicago finishes regulation on a 15-3 run to tie the game at 66 and force overtime. So Chicago rallies after they've lost 3 in a row, rally against Rochester to force overtime, but Rochester scores the final 4 points, or scores 4 points in the final 2 seconds of overtime to beat Chicago 77-76. Chicago has now lost 4 in a row. In the meantime, by the way, update on that, Burr Smith misses a second free throw on purpose, finds Montague for a game-winning 3 at the buzzer. So not only do they score 4 in the final 2 minutes, but Smith misses a free throw on purpose, able to get the rebound, hits his teammate for a 3 to win the game. Mind-blowing. Another buzzer beater in Division III. And like I said, Chicago's struggling here as they are now lost 4 in a row after leading the UAA. In the meantime, Wash U and Emory are playing, and Wash U is trailing Emory 46-44 with 15 minutes left to go in the second. So we'll keep an eye on that. If you remember, Emory is now trying to kind of position themselves here to take control of the UAA. Something I'll freely admit, did not see that coming. On the UAA men's side of things, Emory going into today had a 1-game lead on Rochester, a 2-game lead on NYU and Chicago. Emory 7-1, Chicago 5-3. Now Chicago 5-4. Rochester now 7-2. It's mind-blowing what is going on in the UAA and what a difference 2 weeks has made. Chicago now is going to be in trouble to make the NCAA tournament. Let's be blunt. Absolute trouble. I'm making sure I got the right record there, though. Yeah, so they are now 14-6 overall, having lost 4 in a row. They are 5-4 in the conference. Without the UAA automatic bid, they get thrown into the Central region for an automatic bid, and we're talking CCIW, WIAC. Benedictine's going to probably steal a bid even if they lose in conference. It's a dog pile in there in that region, and Chicago, who was looking great 2 weeks ago, is in trouble. And it's amazing to see how a season can flip just like that. Can Chicago recover? They got 2 games at home next weekend, Carnegie Mellon and Case Western Reserve. One would hope they can get 2 wins there. Then they are on the road, NYU, Brandeis, before finishing at home against WashU. 5 games left. At this point, all must wins. And then you're going to have to get some help. You're going to need WashU today, for example, to beat Emory. And you're going to need Rochester to take a couple lumps. Unbelievable change, just like that, folks, in quick succession. And that's what we're going to be watching today. Let's see, on the women's side of things, hold on a second. Obviously, the UAA games have not started yet. We will get WashU and Emory soon, NYU and Case Western soon. Chicago and Rochester should be starting those 2 previous games will start in about an hour. Chicago, Rochester, obviously, because the game went to overtime, will be a little bit delayed, but it'll be coming up here relatively soon. Other games we'll keep an eye on, other games throughout the day. Obviously, there's some NESCAC games taking place today on the men's and women's side as well. So we'll keep an eye on some SAA games, etc. So we'll keep an eye on those throughout the rest of the show. We talked about buzzer beaters. Maybe I can get to one. One of them, for example, was on. Did you see the craziness? Hold on, I got to find this one. Here we go. Nope, I don't have. Oh, darn it! We're gonna have to find this. See if I can do it quickly here. This is what happens when you have a show 6 hours earlier than you normally do. kind of screws things up. You just don't have the time to put everything together. Let's talk Ripon basketball, shall we? They had an unbelievable finish. We'll call that one up. Tyler Sabin, who I think, let's see, he put up a ton of points. 51 points on 11 three-pointers, including the game winner against Cornell. Got to check this one out to be sure. We'll show it here. Hopefully you can hear it. I don't think I've got it. There we go. We'll see if we can do here. And here's Sabin's winner for Ripon.
McCoy to Katz. Katz, there's going to be Sabin. He's going to put it up. Sabin sinks it. Sabin sinks it at the buzzer.
How about that, huh? Unbelievable shot there for Ripon and Sabin to win that game. There was a top play for ESPN. I'm trying to get to them. Forgive me. Like I said, 6 hours earlier, you can't get to all these things as much as you want to. Let's see. Here we go. We had one for Utica that was pretty impressive. Remember Kevin Connors was on the show from ESPN on the Hoopsville Marathon. We kind of joked about getting more Division III coverage, and he basically said, he's trying. Well, he tweeted at me about this one. This ended up being number 2 on the ESPN SportsCenter Top 10 on Saturday, and it is, or maybe it was Friday. To be honest with you, I've forgotten. It is well worth the look. Check it out.
It is Mayers and Taylor for the Pioneers. Bays and Leonardi. Long toss. Out to 2 and shot at the horn. Is it up? It's in! It is in and it should count, and that will be a game winner. Robert Tootin, an unbelievable circus shot, buries the game. Here's Bays and Leonardi. Long toss. Out to 2 and shot at the horn. Is it up? It's in! It is in and it should count, and that will be a game winner.
I mean, just ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous from Utica. That shot didn't certainly deserve to go in. And then Wisconsin Lutherans, let's see here. Where is it here? Wisconsin Lutherans, Tanner, I believe it's Chev, hit back-to-back game winners in games. Let's see. I think this is, hold on. Again, folks, trying to get these all queued up for you. So we're going to show you the first one he hit. This one was on the 30th of February, or February, yeah, there's no such thing. This is the 30th of January. Check out what he does here. That was obviously the entire sequence of the play. making up for the near buzzer beater on the other end. And then the next day against MSOE, he repeats the trick.
28 seconds left. Raiders can hope for the final shot. We might have overtime here tonight. Stick crossing into the front court, and he will dribble things down at the timeline. 14 down to 13. Nowak will put pressure on him. Now he backs off. 10 seconds. Down to 9. Stick to his right. 7. Now 6. Down to 5. In the corner. Seibert for 3 in the lead. No good. Short. Moreau's rebound. Outlet to Sheevy. 1 second. Half-court shot. Counts if it goes. He got it! Tanner Sheevy hit a half-court shot at the buzzer, and the down to 13. Nowak will put pressure on him. Now he backs off. 10 seconds. Down to 9. Stick to his right. 7. Now 6. Down to 5. In the corner. Seibert for 3 in the lead. No good. Short. Moreau's rebound. Outlet to Sheevy. 1 second. Half-court shot. Counts if it goes. He got it! Tanner Sheevy hit a half-court shot at the buzzer, and the
Tanner Sheevy hits back-to-back game winners in back-to-back games. It's ridiculous. Now, if you happen to have seen the video or the graphic, now our graphics were covering it. It looks like the shot goes off before or after the clock hits 0. Two things about that. One, that clock is not official. That's a thing called Sportscast. It's really cool. Pulls the data from the live scoreboard, but sometimes it's not quite in sync. It was slightly ahead, not to mention the fact it's not showing tenths of a second. But if you listen to the audio, clearly it is out of his hand in plenty of time. Unbelievable effort. I mean, back-to-back buzzer beaters. We have a whole host of them. We've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them in the last week. We can now add Rochester to the list, though we haven't seen it. If it comes up, we will get it for you and show you on the show, probably at the end. Unbelievable buzzer beaters this season. I'm a loss for words as to what we've had in the last week in terms of buzzer beaters. And getting some recognition on SportsCenter ain't too bad either. Kevin Connor is coming through for the Brethren. His great line, by the way, on the Utica shot was, I've played on that court. Didn't play much, but I played on that Elmira court. Scoring update, 5 minutes left to go in the game. Emory's clinging to a lead against WashU, 60-59. That's going to be important. Emory loses that game in men's basketball. They fall into a tie with Rochester and keep Chicago's hopes alive. So a lot of things going on in the UAA we will keep track of, to say the least. So, yeah, there you go. We're going to take a break. Here's what we've got ahead of us. If we've got it in the right order, I apologize here. We've got a lot going on. First and foremost, Joe Logren from Rutgers Newark will join us, talk about his team in the race for the NJAC title. Ken Kroll will join us from Wisconsin Lacrosse. Shocker, they're in the lead of the WIAC. Whitewater and Stevens Point are a couple games back, and it is a dogfight of a race in the WIAC this year. We haven't seen this in years. We'll talk to him about the race on the men's side. Jessica Skelton will join us from SUNY Poly on the women's side. For those of you kind of going, huh? I don't get it. She's playing today. Yeah, we made a mistake in scheduling. She is playing today, and as they take the floor, she will talk to us in a pre-recorded segment. We aren't talking to her as they start the game. Then coming up, Stephanie Flamini from Guilford will talk to us. She'll talk about the race to the ODAC. They're on top, the Guilford Quakers, and playing pretty darn good basketball. And then we'll go to an interview we were supposed to air on Sunday's Marathon, but ran out of time. If you can believe it, in a 12-hour scheduled show, we ran out of time. Danielle Donahoe, the WBCA executive director, will join us in our WBCA Center Court segment. It's a segment I actually taped back in San Antonio. It will allude to the marathon a little bit because, again, the plan was to run it on Thursday, but it was A, longer than we thought, and B, we actually overbooked the show, if you can believe it. We'll talk to her coming up here on Hoopsville as well. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA NABC studio. When we come back, we'll go into the Atlantic region and talk Rutgers Newark men's basketball. You're listening to Hoopsville. Back with more right after this.
Division III schools offer academic scholarships instead of athletic scholarships. This really puts the focus that the student athlete needs to maintain that GPA.
I did receive a non-athletic scholarship upon entering school.
I got the presidential scholarship, which was huge for me.
I think there's more opportunities for academic scholarships in Division III. A lot of people pick schools just based on the sport and don't get that experience.
Being a Division III athlete and developing my leadership skills has definitely put my name out there and helped me get more recognition on campus, but more recognition nationwide. I did win the Jostens Trophy, which is based on leadership, academics, and then how well you do on the court.
I'm also the Schwartz Scholar of my class. Schwartz Scholarship is basically a scholarship that is given to a student who's identified as a likely leader.
At the end of the day, it won't matter how they play on the field, it will matter how they do in the classroom.
I used to never really talk, ever. I was afraid if I said something wrong, everyone would laugh at me. But then I started to play golf with Special Olympics. It helped me to find my voice. And now everyone else is speechless.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at d3hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
For the love of the game. That's what it's all about, they say. But for those of us who are Division III student athletes, it's more than that.
It's more about team and the schools and communities we represent.
And for the many of us blessed with the strength to compete in sport at the college level, we understand that with what we were given comes a special obligation.
Our obligation to help those who have their own special needs and whose love for the game is no less intense.
That is why NCAA Division III teamed up with Special Olympics. Since August of 2011, we and others from Division III campus communities have volunteered more than 250,000 hours, time away from the classroom and practice field, reaching across the country to coach and mentor Special Olympics athletes.
And to learn that in giving, we receive so much more in return. Help us keep that dream alive.
Be part of it.
Get involved.
You can make a difference.
And welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Hope you're enjoying the show. If you've got any questions for us, email us, hoopsville at d3hoops.com. Join us on Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville. Join us on Twitter at d3Hoopsville and hashtag Hoopsville. And you can also join us on Instagram at d3Hoopsville. We hope you have time to do all of that and join us accordingly. Trying to balance the new Instagram with Twitter stuff. It's not foolproof yet. We're still going to have to work on a few things, but we'll do our best no matter what. We're going to start talking guests here, but of course we'll keep track of what's going on around the rest of the country in terms of scores and such after a crazy, again, finish between Rochester and Chicago in men's basketball action. But heading back, we're going to go into the Atlantic region, one of those regions we certainly talk a lot about on Sundays. We talk about the Atlantic. We talk about the Northeast. We talk about the East. Well, today we're going to be talking about the East for some reason. I booked an East guest and not a Northeast guest, so forgive me. We'll tackle Northeast down the road. We'll also talk Central and South region today. A little bit of a screw-up post-Hoopsville Marathon on my end, but we'll get to all of those accordingly. But again, on the Atlantic side of things, on the men's side, the NJAC certainly has one of the more fascinating races, and they always have a rather fascinating race this time of year. One of those teams that certainly is always a favorite in the last few years has been Rutgers Newark, winners of 20 games or nearly 20 games almost every season since back in 2010. And they're doing another stellar job this season, 16-6 so far, 11-4 in conference. Coming off of a win over William Patterson last night with 3 games left, trying to jockey for position in the conference. They're only a game back of Stockton and New Jersey City for the lead, and certainly that is an important factor for them. So joining us on the Hoopsville hotline is their head coach, Joe Logren. Coach, welcome to Hoopsville, sir.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Appreciate you taking the time out of, I know, what is a busy schedule. Obviously, the last 6 games have seen a couple losses, which I know as a coach you're probably a little frustrated by. One of them to Stockton and one of them to New Jersey City, the 2 teams you're chasing. But you still got a chance with 3 to play. What are your hopes of locking up that number 1 or at least making a play at it?
Yeah, it's unfortunate for us. It's a little bit out of our control. We've gotten swept by Stockton and Jersey City, so we just got to control what we can and just play really good basketball here with 3 games left, 3 conference opponents that are pretty good, and so we just got to worry about ourselves now and let the chips fall where they may.
3 games to play, obviously 2 of them on the road. Rutgers, Newark, then home against Rowan, and then on the road against Ramapo, all teams that are behind you. So not only is it important to try and have a chance if Stockton and New Jersey slip up to get number 1, but at the same time keep yourself kind of where you are in that number 3 slot, is it not?
Yeah, no question. Because we'll get a first-round home game, and seeding's important. And listen, Ramapo's right there. I think they're as good as anybody else in the league, and I don't think they get talked about enough. But TCNJ's had a really good season with the new coach, and same with Montclair. They got a new coach, and he's doing a really good job. So those are the 6 teams that are kind of jockeying for position that, again, I think any one of them have a chance to win this thing.
That's the interesting thing is the NJAC certainly is competitive. No one would ever say it's not. What would you say, though, is the hardest part of this conference, at least this season?
Trying to win on the road. But I think that's kind of normal for most conferences. Again, I think our conference is unique because, as you know, they're all state schools in New Jersey. They're kids that play against each other in high school and summer league. So I think the games are probably a little more intense because of the in-state factor. But again, winning on the road is the toughest thing you can do.
Obviously, winning on the road is going to have to be important, though. 2 of the next 3 games are on the road. Obviously, you lost at home against Stockton and New Jersey City on the road recently, but as you pointed out, had been swept. So you had lost earlier in the season. But, the January section had been pretty good for you guys. Yeah, lost to Arcadia earlier in the month, but you've beaten Rutgers, Camden, and William Patterson, Ramapo, and Rowan, all the teams, Montclair State and New Jersey City, all the teams that you needed to beat and obviously have coming up as well. But when you guys beat each other up in the NJAC so much, how hard is it to keep the guys kind of on task and not discouraged?
I don't think it's that hard. I think our guys kind of, I think really good teams want that, and I think at the end of the day, if you're going to try to make that next step, you got to win those tough games. And then the next step is get to the NCAA tournament and try to win some games in the NCAA tournament. So I think our league does a pretty good job, I think, of preparing teams for the NCAA tournament. I know the NJAC's been up and down in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
But Stockton had a pretty good run at it last year, and we had a stretch where we made a good run, and then we had a stretch where, unfortunately for us, we kind of lost, a couple of years in the first round. So, it is what it is, but and overall I think it's pretty good.
Obviously, the NJAC's not exactly looking the way it was supposed to have looked at the beginning of the season. There was a lot of positives. For William Patterson, thought they'd be up in the race. Stockton certainly in the mix. New Jersey City wasn't supposed to necessarily be in the mix at the top. You guys certainly were. It's not like we're not used to things changing in the NJAC almost every single season and not playing out the way it was. But this year seems a little bit more full of turmoil than normal.
Yeah, the whole situation at William Patterson is,
yeah,
it's upsetting how that went down because Jose is one of the best Division III coaches in the country, and so that's a story for another time. But Jersey City has done a tremendous job. I think people may have overlooked them, but boy, Coach Brown has done a great job, and his kids have really played hard. They're playing together, and they're gonna be really good and tough out here at the end. But they've done a great job, and Stockton is what they are. They're the team. They're the premier team in the league year in and year out. They're a 2-time defending champion. Ramapo had been quiet the last 2 years, but that wasn't going to stay. That wasn't going to happen for too long. So they're right back in the mix. So overall, I think it's the teams that have been there, over the last 3 or 4 years are there again. Going to be competing for hopefully a conference title.
How much can you fall back to the beginning of the season and use anything that happened from then now? I mean, you had a win over Hunter and Washington Lee to start the season, had a loss to Gettysburg, obviously lost to New Jersey City, then went on a 5-game winning streak, Stevens, Montclair State, New Jersey's College of New Jersey, Centenary, and Kane, 4 of those 5 at home. How much can you actually go back to those games and say, hey, guys, you remember this, or hey, we need to do what we did in this game? Is the memory short enough to let that work, or are you guys starting basically having to remember the more recent past?
No, there were some lessons early on. We had lost some games, I thought, where we just didn't finish. We were up in a couple of losses with 5 minutes left in the game, up 7, and don't win the game early in the year. And, we've talked a lot about finishing practice strong, finishing games strong. And, I think we've gotten better in that area. Going on a couple, winning streaks here in January, and hopefully here in February we'll continue it. But, no, you go back to those early games, and you know, you don't want to make those same mistakes you made early in the year at the end of the year. So you have to constantly remind you guys it's about finishing. That was our problem early in the year, and that's what we're kind of focusing on now.
15 seasons at the helm of Rutgers Newark. Obviously, as we said, 19, 20 wins for most of the last 5-6 seasons, and usually at the top of the NJAC. But I have a feeling you're kind of chomping at the bit a little bit. The NCAA tournament has kind of escaped you guys in some capacities. If you make it, don't take advantage of it, or you just can't get there. Are you guys kind of itching a little bit here to get to the tournament?
Yeah. You know, that's an interesting question. I thought the last 2 years, and it's the thing we've talked about our team, is we got there 3 years ago with a pretty good team, lose to Ramapo in the finals. The last 2 years, we've knocked on the door, 19, 20 wins. And, we were a couple, 1 or 2 regular season wins away the last 2 years to be back right in the NCAA tournament. For example, last year, if we had 1 or 2 more regular season wins, we would have been in because our strength of schedule was at a .56. Last year, we go on the road to Washington and play Whitworth, beat them, and lose to Whitman, and that just skyrocketed our strength of schedule playing those 2 great teams. And we were there. We were close the last 2 years, and we're going to be there. We're going to be close again. I think we're tired of saying we're close. I think we're tired of saying that, and we want to get over the hump because that's a pretty good feeling to play in the NCAA tournament. As you know, that it's not an easy thing to get there, and there's just so many good quality teams in the country. So hopefully we can get back and do our job here.
How important is it this year? 7 seniors on the squad. Granted, in a lot of NJAC schools, you got a bunch of transfers, so that number's a little deceiving. It's not like maybe they've been there 4 years, and I don't want to make any assumptions they have. You certainly have had a few, though. At least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Actually, 6 guys have been there 6 of those years. So you're one of those with longevity. How important, though, maybe is it this season to maybe win the NJAC to certainly guarantee the AQ, or at least hope you can get in an at-large bid if you position yourself right?
Yeah, I mean, when you have a senior-laden team, you really want your seniors to take over, and we're trying to get to that point. And we're still trying to win our first NJAC championship. We've lost in the NJAC championship game 2 or 3 times, and but this program has made great strides since we've taken over and getting to the NCAA tournament, which has never been done. But we want to get over the hump and get our first championship. And for this group of seniors, they're great kids. They do everything right on and off the court. And they really have done a good job working hard. And so more than anything, I want it for them that they can go ahead and experience this. And, you get the automatic. It just takes the pressure off. You're automatically in if you can get in and win the conference championship. The last 2 times we've been in at large. You kind of have to wait to the 24th hour to find out if you're in the tournament. And that's not a great feeling either. So control what you can control and go ahead and try to win the whole thing.
It's interesting. A lot of teams I've talked to this season, especially those who have been senior laden, have actually had a lot of underclassmen kind of step up to the plate. It's been a little bit different this year. They've been the ones leading the way. It's interesting. Your team is what you traditionally see, usually senior laden, which means senior driven. All but one of the guys in the top 5 is a senior. You're led by Jordan McDaniel, 20 points a game, 7 rebounds a game, assist and a half a game, shooting about 53%, 40% from outside. John Snow, another senior, nearly 18 and a half points a game, 6 rebounds a game. David Azora, another senior, 12 points a game, 5.5 rebounds. You got to get to Tyler O'Fray to be a sophomore at 8.3, and then you're back to a senior and Ricky Stevens at 5.5 points a game. So this is really an important year, and you've got a lot of senior kind of guidance, leadership, et cetera, on the floor.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And, we're getting better in that area. It's a thing that I think we struggled a little bit early with our seniors, but I think they're going to start seeing the light at the end of the tunnel now, and they've really progressed in that area of taking ownership and taking over a leadership role. And we have to continue to get better at that, even though we got 3 games left. That's kind of a goal here, is to play our best basketball and our seniors to step up and lead a little bit more. But like you mentioned, Tyler O'Fray, he's a really good underclassman, so he's our point guard, and he's got a really bright future in front of him. So we have a really good mix, and hopefully at the end of the day, when the playoffs start, we're playing our best basketball.
Interestingly enough, you kind of have an interesting finish here because the last 3 games are kind of a ramp up. You start with the bottom dwelling Rutgers Camden team, who's 2-19, 1-14 in the conference. Then you play Rowan, 8-14, 5-10, and then you finish with Ramapo, who's sitting right behind you, a game behind you, in fourth place at 14-8, 10-5. So an interesting opportunity here. You play teams you need to beat and should beat, but at the same time you're ratcheting up the competition heading into the tournament. You're not going to necessarily have a lull game the day, the game before the tournament or anything along those lines.
No, it's interesting you bring up Ramapo. It's easy to go ahead and look at that game, but we've got to take care of business on Wednesday.
Oh, absolutely.
We've gone down to Camden in my years here and lost down there and not played well. It's a very tough place to play. So it's just really concentrating at one game at a time. And our guys, I think, are aware of that. And then, too, at the end of the day, Ramapo is going to be a dogfight. And the whole key is for every team in the league is play your best basketball at the end of the season. And we're going to try to strive for it. We need to play well each game here. And then hopefully, when we do get into the tournament, we're ready to go and play our best basketball with no excuses, nothing, and we're ready to go. And that's kind of our goal right now.
How does this conference, or how do you guys maybe stack up in the rest of this Atlantic region? You've pretty much played most of the Atlantic region. You've played CUNYAC, you've played the MAC Freedom. I'm trying to remember who you haven't played. How do you think you guys personally stack up in this region? How do you think you may get regionally ranked? If you get regionally ranked, obviously there's the equation there.
Yeah, I'll be honest, Dave. I haven't followed the rest of the Atlantic region that closely. I've just been so consumed with us in our league. So I haven't followed too much of what the other leagues are doing. I know Staten Island's having a good year. I know Arcadia's having a pretty good year, but I can't fully answer that question. I just haven't been in tune to what the other teams in our region have done. I just kind of really been in tune to what our league has done and what we've been doing. You probably may have a better answer than that than I would, to be honest with you.
I don't know right at this point in time. I got to wait till those darn regional rankings show their faces. When
do they come out?
You get to see them Wednesday. Wednesday's our first ones. When you look at your team and you look at the season so far, what's been the biggest growth that you've had?
Our seniors kind of growing up a little bit and becoming better leaders. I think, everybody was trying to rely on somebody else to do that, and I think we've gotten better in that area. And as we make a push here, it's an area that we have to continue to get better at. And some of our young guys we had a couple freshmen that played a little bit early in the year, kind of went through the freshman slump. They're kind of getting back on track now. So that progress has been good. And, we're just trying to find ways also to be more consistent. We've been really good in games where we've had a great half and then not a great half. And so that's an area that I think we've gotten a little bit better in, and it's an area that obviously we really want to sew up and get better in as we get into the playoffs.
Hey, Coach, I appreciate you taking the time to join us. I know you're busy today. Obviously a lot going on, but obviously some big games coming up. So I appreciate you taking the time to talk with us and give us a lowdown of what's going on. As always, we give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those who may be tuning in?
No, but you guys do a great job, and I appreciate your support, obviously, for Division III basketball, and you guys do a great job covering us. So thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Coach. Take care, and we'll talk to you soon.
Good. Thanks, Dave. Bye-bye.
Joe Logren joining us here on Hoopsville. Team is, again, 16-6 overall, 11-4 in conference action. 3 games left at Rutgers Newark, at home against Rowan, and then on the road against Ramapo. That's a ramp up, as I said. Obviously, a lot on the line. They want to at least keep that third-place position and take advantage should Stockton or New Jersey City stumble in the end to pick up maybe enough to get into first and certainly second place as well. Granted, they're working against the tiebreak. Those 2 teams ahead of them have beaten them in conference in both games, I should point out. Scoring update, Emory holds on, beats WashU 74-73. So Emory now still has the game lead on Rochester and has pulled itself away from Chicago. Chicago's in trouble. May not make the NCAA tournament. I hate to say it. They're going to need to kind of push themselves just a little bit, as will everybody else. It'll be fascinating to watch the UAA the rest of the way. There's still a lot of basketball to be played. Remember, in the UAA, there's no conference tournament. So while we're talking 3 weeks out now from the selection shows, for most conferences, NESCAC accepted, we're talking about 2 weeks of basketball, and then the third week being the conference tournament. NESCAC will start that 1 weekend in advance, so they basically have a week and a half left of regular season, and then we'll start that. On the UAA, they play all the way through that last weekend. So there's still 3 weekends of regular season left. There's 2 games next weekend, 2 games the following, and then that final weekend where Chicago will play Wash U. 5 games left in the next 3 weeks. A lot to play for still in the UAA, as they have just literally this weekend was the turn into the second half of conference play. Well, most conferences had already started that weeks ago. So a lot to still be played in the UAA. We'll see how it all plays out. Fascinating to say the least. We're going to take another break. When we come back, we'll go out to Wisconsin, talk about another crazy race going on, the WIAC men's race. Not what you would expect. It's a little bit, well, it's hard to understand. We'll figure it out because lacrosse's head coach will come out and probably give his thoughts. He's in first place in the conference, but for how long? You'll listen to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com for the WBCA and ABC studios. More Hoopsville after this.
For the love of the game. That's what it's all about, they say. But for those of us who are Division III student athletes, it's more than that.
It's more about team and the schools and communities we represent.
And for the many of us blessed with the strength to compete in sport at the college level, we understand that with what we were given comes a special obligation.
Our obligation to help those who have their own special needs and whose love for the game is no less intense.
That is why NCAA Division III teamed up with Special Olympics. Since August of 2011, we and others from Division III campus communities have volunteered more than 250,000 hours, time away from the classroom and practice field, reaching across the country to coach and mentor Special Olympics athletes.
And to learn that in giving, we receive so much more in return. Help us keep that dream alive.
Be part of it.
Get involved.
You can make a difference.
Division III allows you to give yourself to other things.
Having that free time allows me to pursue the things that I want to pursue.
Division III athletics affords students the opportunity to, engage in the other interests in their campus and in their lives outside of that sport.
It allows you to just be able to do everything you want to do. I wouldn't change it for the world.
College basketball lives in Kansas City at the College Basketball Experience at Sprint Center. The College Basketball Experience is the place to get your game on. It's not a museum, it's an experience you won't forget. Discover the history of the game in the National Collegiate Basketball Hall of Fame, featuring the Gallery of Honor, Mentor's Circle, and Honor Theater. Suit up in the latest CBE logoed Nike gear at the CBE Hoop Shop. Elevate your game today and visit the house that college basketball built.
I'm a Division III student athlete, and I know how powerful words can be. The term gay doesn't mean stupid, lame, or less than.
So I pledge to speak up if I hear the term gay used in a derogatory way or any other homophobic terms.
If you can play in Division III.
I'm a Division III student athlete, and my teammates unconditionally accepted me as part of their family. So now I pledge to do the same for others. If you can play in Division III.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
And welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Hope you're enjoying the show. If you got any questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoopsville and hashtag Hoopsville. Email us hoopsville@d3hoops.com. Join us on Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville as well. Of course, Hoopsville presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA and ABC studios. Want to thank everybody who helped us out with the marathon, including the crazy happy hour that went 2 hours plus. We went 14 and a half hours with that show. Actually, I think the marathon went more like 3 hours. The happy hour. Of course, it's all part of the fundraising campaign. We'll talk about more later, but please, we've been tweeting out that link. It's on our show pages all over the place. Please don't be shy and help us. We could use the help to continue doing what we do here. It includes travel. It includes upkeep of equipment. It includes a lot of other things that keep us on the air. Took it out of our pockets for 10 years, and it's hard to keep taking it out of our pockets, especially as the quality is expected to improve. And we want to have it improve. So help us to cover Division III. You'll learn more about it. We can talk more about it at the end of the show, the Indiegogo fundraising campaign. for Hoopsville. Talked about a great race in the NJAC and certainly how crazy it is. Well, there's another crazy race going on in the WIAC. It's not something you traditionally see every year. Usually Stevens Point and Whitewater over the last at least decade have dominated this. Either it's a 2-horse race and then everybody else. Sometimes Platteville gets in the mix, or La Crosse, or somebody. This year it's a little bit crazier than that. La Crosse leads away at 8-2. Eau Claire, River Falls are tied at 2nd and 7-2. Then Oshkosh at 6-4. You go down to 4-6 before you find Whitewater, Stevens Point, and Platteville in a 3-horse race for 5th. Yeah, it's that crazy in the WIAC. Of course, top 6 make the playoffs in the WIAC. So Whitewater, Stevens Point, and Platteville are fighting just to make the playoffs, and we're talking about the last 2 national champs. But that doesn't mean anything to La Crosse, because La Crosse is leading the way, and they're having a spectacular season, and they could be more than thrilled with the way things are taking place. So joining us on the Hoopsville Hotline is their head coach. It is Ken Kroll joining us from La Crosse. Coach, welcome to Hoopsville, sir.
Dave, thanks for having me on. It's good visiting with you.
I appreciate you taking the time. Hey, you got to be thrilled. You guys are sitting in first place in this conference. You got a game lead on Eau Claire. You've got 4 games left: River Falls, Oshkosh, Eau Claire, and Stevens Point. Did you expect to be sitting in the catbird seat at this point in the season?
Well, you never know where you're going to be when you start. I thought we could be a decent team, and obviously the league has unfolded. That's given us a little bit better opportunity. You've talked about Stevens Point and Whitewater, and traditionally they are at the top of our league, and they're not there right now, and it's opened up some opportunities for the rest of us. You know, we have a good league, and I think people know that, and we've had good teams in it. And I feel like I've had good teams in my 13 years here at La Crosse, but when you have, in my 13 years, the national champ 6 times out of your league, it makes it a little bit more difficult to make your way through the league. And fortunately this year we're doing a little bit better and sitting in a good position right now.
How much do you guys have to kind of keep it kind of tempered, though, at the same time? And obviously you still have 4 games left in the conference tournament, and certainly you want it to come through your gym. But how much do you kind of have to keep everybody even keeled with this opportunity and not let it slip through your hands a little bit?
Yeah, we're well aware of the fact that there's still a lot of challenges ahead of us. And we've talked all year about what's next and just trying to take it one possession at a time, one practice at a time, one game at a time. And our guys have done a great job of just staying in the moment and not getting too far ahead of themselves and just trying to get better every opportunity they have. And I think we're doing a good job of that, and we've got to keep doing it.
Earlier this season, you guys kind of started the season a little rough, lost 3 of your first 4 and 5 of your first 8. Augustana certainly welcomed you to the season unceremoniously. Hope beat you up a little bit. Bethel got you guys, then Co and Central certainly got the best of you. But it seems like that might have been the turning point on the season. It seems like you guys may have gained something from those losses. What was it?
Well, we knew going in that we were going to have our hands full. We have a 18-man roster. 10 of our players are new to our program. 3 of our starters are new to our program as well. So at the beginning of the year, I knew we were going to be a work in progress. And while teams get better, I knew going against an Augustana right out of the gate, going against Hope early, those were 2 teams that were much closer to finished products than we were. And so the thought process was, if we can get challenged, hang in there, survive some of those early challenges, we can get better. And fortunately, we've been able to do that. And it's a lot of credit to our guys. When you suffer some losses, you fear you're going to lose some confidence. And our guys just hung together, kept battling, and we found ourselves in a better spot now.
You've been 11-2 since that mark, starting with a win over Luther. You beat Laverne and Caltech on a nice trip to Southern California for the holidays. Came back home and got rolling with a win over Platteville and Eau Claire. Oshkosh tripped you up. Then you got a big win over Whitewater and Stout. Stevens Point then returned the favor, but then you've won 4 straight since, and you got 4 games left. And obviously, it starts with a game on the road at River Falls. Of course, River Falls sitting tied for second in the conference with Eau Claire. What do you need to do to get past River Falls this coming week?
Well, River's a much bigger team, more physical type team, so we really need to handle that. We did that pretty well the first time at our place. They're inside guys. They're going to pound it at us, and I thought we defended really well there, and it's going to definitely start there. River Falls hasn't been a great place for us to go and play. We've had our struggles up there, but a win last night against Whitewater on the road was huge for us, just in terms of continuing to build our confidence and giving our guys that belief that, hey, we can get this done, we can find ways. And so we're just trying to keep building on momentum that we currently have, and it'll be a stiff challenge for us as we move up to River Falls on Wednesday.
Obviously, you guys have got to be proudful that the Wisconsin and Stevens Point have done so well over the years, win those national championships, especially in the last couple of years, while all the rest of you, unfortunately, had to stay home at the same time. So at the same time, you're prideful. You're probably a little bit resentful. Is it kind of feel good to be in the mix this season, maybe get your shot at the NCAA tournament?
Well, it does, and you go into every season with the thought process that, hey, we got a chance to be good, we can make a move, but yet you got to survive the battles of the WIAC, and that's what also makes it fun coaching in this league. You got to be at your best, and if you're not, you're going to struggle. And those teams like Stevens Point, Whitewater have been good, and our league has been so solid. So I'm happy, I'm excited, I'm proud to be in such a good league, but I also know that people will oftentimes look at how you've done from year to year, and your record might not reflect a great season, but our teams are a lot better than sometimes I think our record reflects, just because of the fact that we play against such high-level teams, and you got to, again, try to find ways to survive that. And this year, it's like I said, it's been a little bit more of an opportunity for some of the rest of us, so
Yeah.
we're taking advantage right now.
Absolutely, take advantage of it as best you can. Let's talk about your team just a little bit. When you look at the makeup of this squad, it certainly feels young. It seems young. You only have, 2 seniors on the squad. You talked about all the freshmen who came in and the turnover you had, the 3 new starters to it, and what you guys have learned. That certainly bodes well for the future, makes you scary down the road. Is there any other nuances that you guys have figured out about yourselves just this season alone?
Well, I think the thing that we've done as the season's moved on is we've definitely got more consistent with our play. And coaches talk about that all the time. If you're going to have a good team, you have to have multiple players that game in and game out deliver for you. And we've gotten that as we've moved into our conference play. Leader and really a key player for us has been Jared Stagg. He's been phenomenal just in terms of what he's done. It seems like the more we ask of him, the more he delivers, and he had a big night last night against Whitewater. He's scoring for us, he's defending for us, he's rebounding for us, and he's just such a solid leader. He just plays so steady. If you watch him on the floor, you wouldn't know if you're up by 20 or down by 20. He just does it one way, and our guys are feeding off of him. Devin Yerk, player that's a senior here at UW La Crosse, playing his first year of college basketball. We recruited him to UWL, came here, decided not to play. Now in his last year on our campus, came up to our team, second leading scorer here for us, and playing really well. He's just been really unflappable in terms of how he's handled college game settings that he is now experiencing for the first time. Austin Fritz, a transfer to us, delivered big again last night for us, but he's playing well. So we've had different guys that have really stepped up, and that's been a big key for us. And I think, again, our guys are believing in one another, and they're feeding off one another, which is really big.
Again, not a senior-laden team, so no surprise there that a lot of underclassmen are at the top of the stat sheet, but obviously Jared leads the way as the senior. Of course, he was a transfer from Eau Claire a few years back, 15 points a game, 6.5 rebounds a game. About a 2 assists a game on top of that. Then Devin Yerk, the underclassman, 13.5 points a game, 4 rebounds, about 2 assists a game as well. Ben is it Meinholz?
It is Meinholz.
Meinholz, 10 points a game, 5.5 rebounds. Also Austin Fritz, about 9.1 points a game and 3.5 rebounds a game. We should mention Meinholz, by the way, well over 2 assists a game. He's closer to 3 assists a game. So certainly the future is there, but is there an unsung hero on this squad? Are there guys that aren't hitting that stat sheet that we can't see that are making major contributions to this squad that are helping you guys to this season?
Well, I think you can look at the stats and see the leaders, but I think what's happened for us is when guys have been called on, they've stepped up and delivered. So you might look at one night and see somebody that had 4 points. We played a game a week ago, and Sean Wheeler came in off the bench, in a key moment, delivered 5 quick points, and that was the first time he had entered the game. So we've got different guys when their numbers called have stepped up, and that's really a credit to them in terms of their preparation and being ready for that opportunity when it does come. So it's definitely been a collective effort in terms of what we're doing, and that's something that we have struggled with a little bit in the past, is settling in on who are those 8 to 9 guys you're going to go with. And our roster has been much more steady in terms of playing time. 5 guys have started every game, and we're down to a good 8 to 9 man rotation right now. So I think guys are feeling a little bit more comfortable when their chances are. And like I said, when they get in there, they're making plays and doing what we're asking them to do and having fun doing it, which is awesome to see.
You're on the western side of Wisconsin, kind of in the middle part of the state on the western side. So obviously Wisconsin Superior leaving was less of a hit for you. It's not as long a trip as it is for some of the others. But how much has Superior's departure changed things up? And obviously it can't necessarily be attributed to why Wisconsin, Stevens Point, and Whitewater are down, but how much has it changed the landscape of the conference for you?
Well, I think what it does is it makes every game a little bit more intense because you got everybody playing. You don't have that bye now throughout the course of your season. And so you don't get those opportunities. So you got to keep staying ready and being really one step ahead of the game in terms of how you go at things. I think it's been good. Obviously, Superior got to be a pretty competitive team within our league. But I think it's just it's made each game, I think, a little bit more intense in terms of the Wednesday, Saturday games and not having that time off.
Interesting. I should point out it's still a 3.5, 4-hour trip to Superior for you guys. It's easier to get to St. Thomas and those in the Minneapolis area for you than it is to get to Superior for games. But it's interesting you talk about that opening up of the schedule a little bit and no bye as a result of it. Obviously, you get to schedule a few extra teams. You obviously being on the border of Iowa, you took advantage of that. How do you see the landscape? Obviously, you played a lot of Western region teams, but how do you see the landscape of the Central region shaking out for maybe yourselves or in general?
Well, obviously we have a good region with the CCIW. You got Augie and you got Elmer's playing really well. North Central out of that. We've got St. Norbert's. That's a ranked team. I think for us in our league, looking at records right now, it's probably going to take the team that wins our conference tournament to get a bid into the NCAA tournament. So you're trying to, again, like you do every year, but you're really trying to focus on playing your best basketball at the end of the season, having a lot of momentum moving forward into that conference tournament. And you talked about, trying to position yourself for the conference tournament so you can get some home games. That's huge. We played well on our home court. The only loss we had this year was to Hope early in the year. So we've been solid there. And I think that's ultimately what we've been talking about as a coaching staff, is trying to be in a good spot so we can make a run into that conference tournament and hopefully be positioned to make the NCAA tournament.
I was going to say something interesting, though, is for you guys, it's always been about having to win the AQ, because no matter what's going on with Whitewater and Stevens Point, they're the ones who got positioned to get an at-large bid. You guys, the rest of the conference, have got to win the AQ to get to the tournament anyway. So in some senses, nothing's changed.
Exactly right. We haven't really approached that any differently than we have in the past, and that's, again, why we scheduled the teams that we did early on, just to continue to challenge ourselves, try to prepare our guys for the grind of the WIAC, and then, again, hopefully be ready that we're good to go when the conference tournament starts and can make a run there.
A different topic, but per Wisconsin Sports, we had a chance to see Wisconsin. Don't you hate it when your brain goes completely upended on you? Give me a minute. I just gotta stare at a schedule. There we go. Stout. I should not forget that. It's a good beer. Wisconsin Stout. We saw them at the D3Hoops.com Classic, and Pat got a chance to talk to their head coach Andrist, and he said that he talked about the relationship that they have with Wisconsin-Madison. With Bo now obviously no longer coaching, and Greg Gard, made it sound like the whole state has a good relationship on the basketball side of things with that D1 program. Is that true from your point of view?
Most definitely. I think it really helped, obviously, with Bo being at Platteville. When I was an assistant at Stevens Point, Greg Gard was the assistant there at Platteville with Bo. So I got a chance to get to know Greg pretty well and saw him on the road a lot. And still periodically we'll see him in the recruiting and chat with him, and just really pulling for him that he can continue to make the progress that he has with that team, and somehow they can get into the NCAA tournament, and would really love to see him secure that job moving forward. I think he's done an outstanding job so far. Looks like he belongs there, so hopefully he can keep it going, but definitely some connections, yes.
I was going to say, how does that help you guys?
Well, I think it helps because they have the ties to our conference. We've had exhibition games with teams in our league, with the Badgers. We had an opportunity to do that back in 2010, and what a neat experience for a Wisconsin team that typically is filled with Wisconsin players, that the Badgers are kind of that team when you idle, or you idle when you're growing up, and then to have a chance to go to the Kohl Center and play them in a game, pretty neat experience. I think our guys really enjoyed that, and when you have those connections, hopefully you can keep some of those things going. So we'd love to see it happen.
Well, Coach, I appreciate you taking the time to join us, talk about the WIAC, talk about your lacrosse Eagles. Certainly an impressive season. Looking forward to seeing how this all shakes out in the end, and hopefully the tournament's coming through Mitchell Hall for you guys. As always, though, we give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those who may be tuning in?
Well, I just want to thank you for your coverage. It's great having somebody like yourself that is really promoting Division III basketball. I tell people all the time that quality basketball has no level, and I think we play some pretty good basketball at the D3 level. So thank you for your support. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. I might steal that line from you. Quality basketball has no level. Very nice. Appreciate it, Coach. Take care. Good luck the rest of the season.
Thanks, Dave.
Ken Kroll joining us here on the show again. They started the season 3-5 and are 11-2 since. They have won 4 in a row, 6 of their last 8, and actually it goes even further back than that, as obviously they've won 11 of their last 13. 4 games left. River Falls on the road Wednesday, then at home against Oshkosh, then on the road the next Wednesday against Eau Claire, then finish at home against Stevens Point. Stevens Point might be in a situation in that game fighting just to make the WIAC tournament. So a lot on the line for a lot of teams in the WIAC on the men's side of things. Fun to watch, to say the least. Obviously, it looks like one team's going to get into them from that tournament. I don't see an at-large necessarily coming out of the WIAC this season, which is certainly different, but it makes for a very interesting and fun race nonetheless. When we come back, we'll switch gears, talk women's basketball, talk to a coach who's about to take the floor with her team. No, we're not going to talk to her live, but we will talk SUNY Poly women's basketball coming up. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA and ABC studios. More Hoopsville right after this.
For the love of the game. But for those of us who are Division III student athletes, it's more than that. A lot more.
Sure, the game is important, but as we work so hard to build both mind and body, it's more about team.
That is why NCAA Division III teamed up with Special Olympics. And in giving the gift of sport to those for whom it seemed an impossible dream, we are working to make this a better world.
Help us keep that dream alive.
You can make a difference.
I used to never really talk. Ever. I was afraid if I said something wrong, everyone would laugh at me. But then I started to play golf with Special Olympics. It helped me to find my voice. And now everyone else is speechless.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.D3Hoops.com.
College basketball lives in Kansas City at the College Basketball Experience at Sprint Center. The College Basketball Experience is the place to get your game on. It's not a museum, it's an experience you won't forget. Discover the history of the game in the National Collegiate Basketball Hall of Fame, featuring the Gallery of Honor, Mentors Circle, and Honor Theater. Suit up in the latest CBE logoed Nike gear at the CBE Hoop Shop. Elevate your game today and visit the house that college basketball built.
And welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Not the marathon show. This is a lot easier show. This is our super show, but it's not super in size. It's just that we're on Super Bowl Sunday here, obviously, and doing the show much earlier in the day. to the fact that there's a big game and we're not crazy enough to go up against it. Hey, come Oscars night, we're going to go up against the Oscars because we're going to have Selection Sundays here, but that's a whole nother topic. If you've got questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us, hoopsville@d3hoops.com. Join us on Facebook, facebook.com/Hoopsville. Also, please don't forget about the Hoopsville Fundraising campaign. It's got, 2 weeks left? I can't even remember how many. I know I've been mentioning it. 3 weeks left in the campaign. We've raised about 35% of the campaign. To be honest with you, didn't do a good enough job, as we've mentioned, on the marathon. We need your help. Please consider doing so. Talk lacrosse and men's. Well, we've talked lots of things today, but now we're kind of shifting back up to upstate New York. Certainly spent a lot of time in upstate New York this year, but that's because that's where a lot of the good basketball in the East region is positioned, because most of it's in upstate New York. You can certainly talk SUNYAC, you can talk Liberty, you can talk Empire 8 and the like. But the other conference that's in there that has some good teams that kind of fly under the radar would be the NEAC. Now, granted, it is a large conference, and on the men's side and the women's side, and some of the divisions dominated by the southern side of things. But on the northern side, on the women's side, you should go take a look at SUNY Poly. They have won a whole host of games in a row, 11 to be sure. They are leading their conference pretty handily, or their division, over Morrisville State, and trying to position themselves to make sure the tournament comes through their doors. When we scheduled this, I forgot they were playing today. So this is definitely a pre-taped interview, because as we speak, Jessica Skelton and her team are taking to the floor to take on Bryn Anthon. But she joins me ahead of that here in a pre-taped segment. Coach, welcome to Hoopsville.
Thank you.
Appreciate you taking the time before your game to join us here.
No problem.
15-4 overall, 12-0 in the conference right now. Obviously, you've had a number of good seasons recently and have certainly been at the top of the NEAC, but kind of not talked about much. Mainly, again, the NEAC kind of flies under the radar. Do you guys have that feeling when you're up there too?
Yeah, we do. I mean, every year it's the same thing. I always feel like we're a little under the radar, and but sorry, I actually just had somebody come in my office. I apologize.
It's all good.
Yeah, we're definitely under the radar. I don't think we get the credit as far as a conference as we probably deserve. But we kind of embrace that and go with it, and just try our hardest against whoever we're playing, whether it's conference or non-conference.
It's interesting because you've had a lot of high winning seasons of late, but you got to go back pretty far. I mean, I haven't yet gone back to find when you guys were last in the NCAA tournament. Last year, unfortunately, pretty good season, 16-2 in the NEAC, lost to Penn State Abington. Of course, Abington got sent out to George Fox in the NCAA tournament, so maybe that was a blessing in disguise. But at the same time, again, you have these great winning seasons. You certainly compete at the top of the NEAC, but then you guys just don't get the ultimate glory of making it to the NCAA tournament. Does that kind of rub at you guys a little bit? Are you kind of itching to get to the postseason?
Yeah. I mean, we're sick of it.
Good. Okay.
We've come up short a couple of times, and it sucks. It's unfortunate. You hate to see your kids work so hard all season and then just fall short. But we're kind of taking it this season, and we're just, like I said, we're sick of it. And we want to finally break through. We've had some unfortunate, last year against Abington, tough injury down the stretch of the game, losing, one of my leading scorers. Hopefully, we don't see that happen, but, we're just kind of embrace it and know the situation, know that as long as I've been here, we've never made the NCAA tournament, and the girls know that, and I'm not so sure if any women's team at the school has yet. So we're even taking that into consideration and put that in our minds to keep us going,
Well, you're certainly playing darn well right now. You beat Penn State Abington 82-28 in your last go-out. Again, if you're just tuning in, they're playing Bryn Anthon as we speak, so this is not live, or this is one creative interview, to say the least. Obviously, you'll have one more game against Cazenovia. We'll talk about the home game and schedule coming up, but it senses that you guys know what's at stake, that you want to position yourself appropriately, the NEAC, and then you want to make sure you get the job done when you have that opportunity. How important is it to make sure this tournament comes through your doors?
I mean, we sure as heck don't want to travel as far as right now all the way out to Lancaster. They're the top seed out there, and it's a drive. We don't want to do it. Obviously, if it happens, it happens. But we want to keep our kids home. I've got some seniors that have put a lot of time and energy, into playing for me 4 years, and they would love to stay home and get as many home games as possible, and bring the tournament here, because it is really quite the environment to play, playoff games here. So I'm hoping we can do it for them,
What's interesting is you do have 5 seniors on this squad. Is it a topic of conversation? Some coaches will say they'll make this a topic of conversation. Hey, you know what? Remember what our goal is here. We want to make the NCAA tournament. We got to win the NEAC, et cetera, et cetera. And some of them don't necessarily make it an overt topic. They want to keep them focused on the task at hand. What are you doing? Is it a balancing act, maybe?
I mean, we know the ultimate goal, but it's every game. We change it. We have a game plan. It changes for every game. We just take it one game at a time. But I cannot say that in the back of our head we know the ultimate goal. We've gone over at the beginning of the season. We try not to discuss it, every day, obviously, but we know that every day, every game matters. And regardless of who we play, we have to change our game plan and do whatever we have to do to make it to our ultimate goal. So no, we don't talk about it, and every day. But I can't sit there and say it's something that we deliberately not talk about.
Sure.
We're just trying to take every game as it comes and concentrate on that specific day, and then when that's over, we move on to the next. So.
Not an overly tall team. You do have a 6-footer as one of your seniors on the squad. You have a 5'10" as well, but everybody else kind of be in mid-range 5-footers. So obviously you kind of need to work with the guard play. Though you got a couple forwards leading the way. Gina Gallo, the senior, 15.5 points a game, 7 rebounds a game, assist and a half a game. She's got senior. Stevie Ray, junior, 15 points a game on top of that, 4.5 rebounds. Of course, there's also Lauren Knowles. Can't forget about her, 13.5 points a game and 9.5 rebounds a game. All 3 of them will hand out assists, as I pointed out earlier. But those 2 seniors obviously are the catalyst, but you've got a number of other ones who are contributing. Almost all of them are, plus the underclassmen. This definitely seems like a very nicely spread out kind of offense and spread out kind of team.
Yeah, the last few games especially, we never really know who is going to lead the way. The Morrisville game, I think, showed a lot with Lauren Knowles stepping up and dishing out 9 assists. I asked her specifically to become a passer. They were playing zone and, brought her high and just said become a passer and hit Gina Gallo down low. And she dished out 9 assists and didn't even worry about herself as far as scoring. And you just never know. You never know where Stevie Ray's going to, explode. Just whatever they're going to give us. I think we're pretty good about not really caring. The ultimate goal is to win that game, and that's what they've, been doing. So,
the last time you lost a game was when you traveled to Phoenix, Arizona. Lost to Eastern Connecticut and Keene State back on the 29th and 30th of December. Of course, you had lost to Cortland before the break, so that was kind of the roughest part of the season, losing 3 there. But you took on some tough teams there, Eastern Connecticut and Keene State, and you're relatively close. I mean, you lost to Eastern Connecticut by 11, and you lost to Keene State by 12. Granted, low-scoring affairs for you guys. You only couldn't get out of the get out of the 40s. What did you guys take from that tournament? What did you take from that experience coming back home afterward and now going on an 11-game winning streak since?
We know that offense sometimes is just not going to be there, and we really needed to do a better job defensively and not just with the players but myself as well, coming out with a better game plan and specifically targeting their players and what we're going to do and really following through with the game plan that we set for ourselves. And like I said, not just the players, myself as well, coming together and just acknowledging what we needed to do better. And I think defense was a big part of it because we were giving up some points and easy points at times. And, basically that. And then we added a couple new players as well, so it certainly helped us with our depth issue because the first semester we had a little depth issue as far as who we had coming off the bench. And so that's helped us tremendously with the couple girls stepping in. So just overall, just a few different things that we had to work with. And I think we haven't overcome everything. We're still working. Every day we're finding something else to work on. So we're just trying to, look at ourselves and see what we can do better and then work on it.
It's interesting. By the way, I misspoke earlier, and not to belittle it. There's actually a 32 points to Keene State. I apologize. I made it sound like 12. Apparently, the marathon's still wearing off on me because I can't do simple math. But you came back, and you've had a very interesting schedule. You started this season with 5 straight home games. Granted against Utica and Hamilton, it's basically drives down the street for those two teams. Wells, Cayuga, and then Albany Pharmacy out of Division III. Then you hit the road for 1 game against Cortland. Then you actually hit the road, to play in Arizona. Came back home, had 4 home games. Then hit the road and had 5 away games. Now you're home in the midst of a 4-game home stretch, and then you'll hit the road to finish the season with 4 road games. I'll admit I see some of that sometimes, but it's not that consistently. I've never seen literally home, away, home, away, home. I mean, literally sections of your schedule. I realize it probably wasn't on purpose, but how has that affected the team? How has that affected you?
I don't think it's. I mean, I guess I was a little nervous at first, because even our 2 scrimmages were both home. So,
oh wow!
Yeah.
Oh, geez, Coach.
I mean, what happened was we scheduled the trip out to Arizona after. Basically, I'd just about had my schedule done, and we're all of a sudden, all right, let's plan this trip. We've got some seniors, and so I had to get rid of some away games I already had planned, and we'll bring them back next season. But a conference schedule is a conference schedule, and I just wasn't able to place certain non-conference games. And honestly, there's just no time in January, February, really, for non-conference games as it is. And so it's just kind of the way it went. And with the trip out to Arizona, like I said, I had to get rid of a couple games, so there's really nothing I could do about it. But I was worried at first, but the girls, I mean, they just, we've got some great leaders, and they just don't let certain things bother them. I mean, it's not even really a discussion for them. I was nervous. It was in the back of my head, but it wasn't an issue, really.
I was obviously you're going to be used to it because you're going to go on this stretch of 4 home road games on the to finish things. You may not like to travel to Lancaster Bible, but guess what's on the schedule? You got an interesting trip here. You got to go to Lancaster Bible, which is down in the southeastern part of Pennsylvania. Then go to Penn State Berks, which is another part of the state. As part of that one weekend coming up on Valentine's Day weekend, and then you'll go on the trip to Cayuga and Wells, which is obviously a little bit closer to home. For you. And obviously you have no choice here. You're used to travel. I mean, the previous, like we said, 5-game stretch in the conference was Morrisville State, Penn College. Penn College wasn't in conference. Cazenovia, SUNY Cobleskill, and St. Elizabeth. So you're used to hitting their bus for a few weekends in a row, but it's a lot of pressure on you also, though, to stay in position here and thus have to do it on the road. That's putting in kind of almost doubling down a little bit here, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that, again, we know it's ahead of us, but we just have to stay the course and continue to do what we have to do and concentrate on us. We're not, we have our game plan as far as what team we're playing, but we're really trying to take care of ourselves and do, what we do. And just, like I said, just kind of stay the course and not worry about, the other things that come into play, whether you're home and away and whatever it is, officials or, who's sick. It doesn't really matter. We're just trying to concentrate on us first and then keep the distractions and whatever else, kind of out of the picture.
Speaking of distractions, the campus is located right across the street from a relatively large mall, not the big mall in Utica per se, but I know the mall. It's got a movie theater and everything else. It's perfectly positioned for distraction. At the same time, though, you guys are in your own little area there in the upstate New York area. Does that help you guys focus in some way? I mean, it's not like you got the hustle and bustle of a Rochester or a hustle and bustle of maybe a bigger town. Utica's kind of a quiet, sleepy, old blue-collar town.
Yeah, I mean, we're right in Marcy, so once you get on campus, it's the campus.
Yeah.
There's really there's obviously a ton to do out and about, but you got to get off campus to do it. I like it. I mean, I went to school here.
Yeah.
It's perfect for me. The girls are right on campus. It's nice, easy. I could see the dorms from here, right at the gym. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not really too familiar with a big city school or a school that's right plop in the middle of, a bunch of different things, but I like it. It works for me as a student athlete. My kids enjoy it. They love the school. They love the campus. But at the same time, if they do want to step out, they can, but it's certainly not pulling them away from their classes or pulling them away from basketball or anything like that. So.
Yeah. I kick myself every time I go up and visit relatives up there because to get to them, to go to Remsen, New York, I have to drive by your campus relatively easily.
Yeah.
And every time I do it, I'm like, if I just pulled on, I might go see a game. It's one of those things, but you're never timed well. By the way, speaking of busy, in a school like yourself, not this surprising, but it caught me a little bit off guard. Usually I'm used to a coach having 2 responsibilities with teams possibly, still in this day and age in Division III. You are the head coach of not only the basketball team, you're the head softball coach, and you're the head women's cross-country coach. Crossover is an understatement with your life. Obviously, softball season with you guys isn't necessarily kicking into high gear just yet due to the fields not being prepared, but how tough is it to manage all of that?
Well, I was the coach of all 3. I'm no longer the coach of all 3 anymore.
Oh, okay. I'm just looking at the bio on the site, so I apologize.
Yeah, no, they, have to talk to that SID. No, I mean, it was tough, but, I always had some really good assistants, to help out. And I don't teach here, so it's not as probably difficult. I know a lot of other schools have coaches that teach or coaches that do this and that, but I mean, the school really sets us up pretty well to do that. I really enjoyed coaching basketball and softball at the same time. It was fun. It kept me busy. You don't usually run into games or anything, but the practices you do have to, I'd come in for a 6 a.m. softball practice, and then I'd come back at, a 12 o'clock basketball practice or something like that. So that was certainly difficult. And it got even more difficult. I have a son as well, and now I just do basketball. So that was the best and smart decision, that we could do for myself personally. But it's not easy, especially if you have kids at this level that play both sports, and I definitely had a few kids that played basketball and softball for me. So it's not easy, but it can certainly be done.
Sure.
I would say the hardest part is probably recruiting for all of those kids.
Oh, I bet.
That was the difficult part. But like I said, I mean, our athletic department, we were lucky, and they supplied me with some really good assistants. So it worked out for, my God, I think I did it 6 or 7 years.
Wow.
So,
that's amazing. Well, obviously you're a star on the softball field as well, and obviously doing very well on the basketball court this period in your career, and obviously this season. I appreciate you taking time out of your prep work for today's game to join me here to talk about things. As always, though, we give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those who may be tuning in?
Go Wildcats.
Perfect. That's a good way of doing it. Coach, thanks so much.
Yeah,
hey, at this point in time, short and sweet is not too bad. Hey, appreciate you taking the time to join us. Good luck the rest of the season. Going to keep an eye on the Wildcats. Look forward to seeing you hopefully make it to the NCAA tournament. And good luck the rest of the way as well. And obviously good luck in your other seasons.
And thank you for taking the time to talk to me as well.
Absolutely. Thank you. Jessica Skelton joining us here on the Hoopsville Hotline. Again, the team 15-4, 11 in a row. They're 12-0 in conference. They are playing as we speak against Bryn Anthon. It's just a scheduling quirk on my part. Then they are home against Cazenovia to finish off the schedule later this week of their home schedule. Then they're hit the road against Lancaster Bible, Penn State Berks, Keuka, and Wells the following 2 weekends. Hitting the road to guarantee they stay home for the NEAC tournament. We'll see how the Wildcats do the rest of the way. When we come back, we'll have plenty more Hoopsville ahead. Of course, don't forget, we have our long, extensive conversation with the WBCA Executive Director, Danielle Donahue. That's all coming up here on a Super Bowl Sunday edition of Hoopsville. We'll be back with more after this.
I'm a Division III student athlete, and I know how powerful words can be. The term gay doesn't mean stupid, lame, or less than.
So I pledge to speak up if I hear the term gay used in a derogatory way or any other homophobic terms.
If you can play in Division III.
I'm a Division III student athlete, and my teammates unconditionally accepted me as part of their family. So now I pledge to do the same for others. If you can play in Division III.
I'm a current Division III student athlete, and I remember how intimidating the first year of college can be.
So if you're a first-year student athlete and nervous about coming out as LGBTQ, I pledge to stand by your side as your ally.
If you can play Division III.
I'm a Division III student athlete, and I believe student athletes can help break down the barriers of exclusion.
I pledge to support and encourage my teammates
to support my campus's LGBTQ student group
by volunteering and participating in events.
If you can play in Division III.
I'm a Division III student athlete, and I believe that everyone should be educated on LGBTQ issues.
I pledge to work with my athletic department and my campus to foster dialogue and create a community of support, respect, and pride.
If you can play in Division III.
We are Division III student athletes, and you can be too. If you can play in Division III.
For the love of the game. But for those of us who are Division III student athletes, it's more than that, a lot more.
Sure, the game is important, but as we work so hard to build both mind and body, it's more about team.
That is why NCAA Division III teamed up with Special Olympics, and in giving the gift of sport to those for whom it seemed an impossible dream, we are working to make this a better world.
Help us keep that dream alive.
You can make a difference.
And welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Hope you're enjoying the show. If you've got any questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us, hoopsville@d3hoops.com, or join us on Facebook, facebook.com/Hoopsville. We're also on Instagram a bit. We tried today to kind of get that rolling in the show, and just wasn't a good show to pick, being earlier and how much we're behind trying to get a show put together 6 hours in advance of what you normally do is not the wisest of choices, but nonetheless, we will get that. We'll get used to that and kind of get up and rolling with that down the road. Of course, Hoopsville presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA and ABC studios. Thank you for tuning in and joining us here on the air. We were talking about the UAA men's races, the women's race underway. We'll give scoring updates shortly, but on the men's side, again, big thriller from Rochester as they beat Chicago in overtime on a missed free throw and made three-pointer at the buzzer, a purposely missed free throw, made three-pointer, to give Chicago its fourth straight loss. WashU, on the other hand, has lost their sixth straight of the season. Hasn't happened since the early 80s that WashU has lost six straight. So certainly interesting times. Previous segment, we talked to SUNY Poly. Currently, they are trailing Bryn Anthon 21-19, 7:59 left to go in the second quarter. Let's keep talking women's basketball, and when you slide down into the old Dominion Athletic Conference, things get a little bit more interesting. We certainly have had a lot of interesting races to talk about here on the show, and this one is not the exception. The ODAC has now got a first-place tie between Guilford and Lynchburg at 10-2 each, with Emory and Henry at 9-3, and Eastern Mennonite, Washington and Lee, and Bridgewater all lurking at 7-5. Yes, it is tough at technically 3 games back to maybe get into it with 4 games left, but anything is possible. Picked a team to talk to, and one of them has certainly got to be Guilford. Team is 24-5 last year, 2 years ago, 17-10 last year. Back in the mix of things at 16-3 this season and 10-2, unfortunately, after a tough loss on the road to Eastern Mennonite. But nonetheless, we want to thank Coach Flamini for joining us on the Hoopsville Hotline, which she does right now. Coach, welcome to Hoopsville.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it as well, especially off of a tough loss yesterday, Eastern Mennonite, 70-63. Obviously, it was a big game for Eastern Mennonite. They want to stay in the mix of things, and it was a big game for Lynchburg because they now are in a tie with you guys. But outscored in that last quarter, 23-15. Certainly not how you wanted to finish the game. I'm assuming.
No, we just couldn't hit shots down the stretch, and that happens every once in a while. And we don't have seniors, so we don't really have anyone that's playing their last 4 games, 5 games of the season that's really going to, have a little bit more push because it's possibly the end. So, we got to find that. That's one thing I think that we're missing because we don't have any seniors. No one's under any urgency because we all know everyone's back next year. So I think that's something I'm going to have to find a way to trick them into thinking they're seniors maybe, because I think that's a big advantage to other teams when you're playing with seniors.
Well, it's interesting this season, though. I've seen a lot of teams who are succeeding a lot. They may have seniors, but it's the underclassmen who are stepping up. Heck, Rutgers Newark earlier in the show is about the first team I've talked to who's been dominated by seniors in the scoring stats. So, but there's an element of certainly experience and having confidence. Is that what you're kind of alluding to?
Well, and I mean, we're playing Easter Monday night, and they have 2 kids that have played on very successful teams, and they know how to win, and they don't want to go out losing, and they're used to winning. So I think that's, maybe these other teams, and I don't know, but I think the big thing is that they have an All-American, a preseason All-American who's going to, give everything she has to not lose.
Yeah, no, that's the truth. It certainly makes it a little bit more interesting when they have something like that token, and it's almost the learning how to close out a game. You're still in the lead of the conference though, 10-2, tied with Lynchburg, and obviously a game up on who did I say you were? A game
Emory
up?
Henry.
Thank you. Brain is. You think the marathon's still residing in my head? Up on Emory and Henry, which is certainly important. You just beat Lynchburg 2 games ago, 63-50. And that was the only time you'll play them this season. So you've got the tiebreaker at least with them, but you've still got 4 to play. And 3 of them, of the 4 at least, are going to be at home. You'll play Hollins coming up this week along with Bridgewater. Then the following week you'll finish on the road with Henry, and then home against Virginia Wesleyan. So you still got to feel confident with how you're positioned this season.
Yeah, I mean, I feel good with 3 home games, but I mean, we have lost 2 of our 3 games at home, so that's been a little troublesome. But I mean, we're pretty happy with where we are. We just have to remember to take one game at a time and never underestimate an opponent, because in the ODAC, anyone can beat anyone on any given night.
Obviously, finishing number 1 in the conference is nice. It doesn't have any necessary home court advantage. You won't have to play the early rounds if memory serves, and you'll skip advance right to the Salem Civic Center for the quarterfinals. It just depends on who you'll face, basically, there, right?
Right, and to me, I think I talked about this with Kevin yesterday at EMU, that at this point it doesn't even matter where you're seated, because there isn't going to be an easy game, and whoever wins the ODAC tournament is certainly going to earn it.
Yeah, it just depends on which jersey you're wearing, home or away.
Right.
and what
exactly.
And what time you might be playing the game instead.
Right.
But obviously 3 of the last 4 at home at least give you some comfort. People are going to have to come to North Carolina to play you, which for some of these teams is the longest trip. For Hollins, it certainly isn't long. For Bridgewater, it gets longer. Virginia Wesleyan, it's certainly going to be a bit of a haul. So at least you have the ability to have some home cooking and some advantage there, and play certainly in a fun place in the Reagan Brown Fieldhouse. But you talk about the seniors and trying to get them to, and not the lack of seniors, I should say, and get your underclassmen to play bigger. How do you go about trying to pull that off?
Well, I think the biggest thing is going to be, I might have to trick them. I don't know. I have to figure out how to get them to, well, they've done a pretty good job of being consistent and just staying focused on, each game, one game at a time, one day at a time. I know that's a big cliche, but honestly, that's all we do. I don't try to have them look ahead at an ODAC championship or any of that. We just want to focus on right here and now and try to win as many games as we can and not put too much pressure on them. I think that's where you run into trouble, when you start talking about all these things you want to do and da-da-da, and then it starts to put some instant pressure. I mean, we have pressure because we're in first and everyone's trying to knock us out, and we haven't talked about it. We really don't talk about it, because in the end, I just want them to go out and play their best basketball and not feel pressure. I just want them to have a good time and do the best they can, and wherever we end up is fine with me.
I don't remember how the ODAC was supposed to play out. I'm actually kind of rushing to look it up at this point in time. I don't remember if you guys, where you were picked necessarily to be in the race, but I know Eastern Mennonite bringing back certainly All-Americans. Everyone was expecting them to have a good season. They were expecting Lynchburg to have a good season, et cetera, et cetera. Are you playing above where everybody expected you to finish?
Yeah, I think we were picked 6th.
Okay.
And I think a lot of that was we lost 3 starters. And, we have all new faces, or was it 4 starters? I don't even remember who started for me last year. But we pretty much have 4 new starters. I think it's Amy Heaven didn't start. Anise is the one that really was the one that shining star we had coming back from last year as far as starters are concerned. And I think everyone looks at, on paper, we should have been picked 6, certainly. I mean, I agree with that. But what they don't know was that the team chemistry was a little better, and the kids that were moving into the starting lineup have played a lot for us and have given us, a lot of good minutes. And certainly I felt we're going to step into that role pretty easily. And they did exactly what I thought. So I think the only thing that I was maybe questioning was that none of them had starting experience really, and how quickly were they going to get comfortable? And they got comfortable very quickly. I mean, certainly faster than I thought they would.
Certainly playing well. Lynchburg was picked to finish first. Eastern Mennonite, then Randolph-Macon, Washington and Lee, Emory Henry, then yourselves. Granted, you were kind of nip and tuck with Emory and Henry there, 5-6. Well, let's talk about this squad and what they've been doing. You're led by a junior and Weatherly, who's got 16 points a game, 9.5 rebounds a game, 2.5 assists a game, and 3.5 steals a game. I think she may be overachieving just a little bit, Coach. Lauren Ramsey, a sophomore, 10 points a game, 4 rebounds a game, 2.5 assists a game. You've got Heaven Walters, a junior, at 8 points a game. You also have Essence Abram at 7 points a game, 6.5 from Amy Stetler. Junior, sophomore, junior, freshman, junior. You talk about the fact you've got no seniors on the squad. That obviously bodes well for the future, but you at least have a nice core of juniors there who are at least statistically helping this team along.
Yeah, we've had certainly different people stepping up throughout the season. Lauren's had some good games. Heaven had a great game yesterday and a few in the past this season. She's really stepped up, and she's playing out of position. So, and obviously Nice has been pretty consistent. But and then Amy Steller had a big game against, I think it was Lynchburg. Or I can't remember which game it was, where she hit a lot of threes. Maybe it was W&L. I think it was W&L. And, so everyone has given us, Essence, as a freshman, has had some big games for us where she's put up 16, 15 points. So we really aren't a one-woman show, and that's really where I think that separates us sometimes from other teams is that, you can focus on Anise or you can focus on Lauren or whoever, but we have other people that can certainly step up and put the points on the board, and we didn't really have that last year. We had just a few people that could score, and if they didn't, we were in trouble. So that's what I like about this year's team. We certainly are much well-rounded, more well-rounded than we've been in the past, and and it's not just the juniors. We have some freshmen and some sophomores. Kayla Scott has had some big games for us, and then our post players. We have a small lineup and we have a big lineup, so we can match up with a lot of different teams. So. That's something that I think is to our advantage.
The one game you lost out of conference was against Stevens at home, as you mentioned, struggling at home. But the beginning of the season saw you at home 3 of the first 5. But out of conference, you didn't travel this season, really, for the most part. You didn't go to some far-flung location. You didn't have necessarily any tournament except the one you had at home with Denison and Stevens, who we mentioned already. It kind of seems like for lack of a better description, because my brain isn't coming up with any good ideas, is a ho-hum type of out-of-conference to kind of get you ready for conference play. What was the mentality with scheduling this year? And do you feel you've put yourself in a spot where you're going to have to win the AQ no matter what?
I hope not, but it certainly could be a realistic outcome is that we have to win the AQ. But I tried to put our tournament in a position where we had some really good teams so that, Lynchburg was in our opening tournament, and then we had, Denison and Stevens Institute of Technology, and I just felt like all those teams are NCAA tournament teams, and so I wanted to see where we were early, and I felt like the team certainly didn't let me down. I was somewhat surprised at our, the way we competed, and to be honest, the game against Stevens Institute of Technology, we actually hit a 3 that was called a 2, so it could have gone to overtime.
Ooh.
But it was a little tough. But
it's happened a few times this year.
And I'm not saying we would have won, but at least it would have went to overtime. So, but I will say that I was pleasantly surprised at the competition level and how we stepped up to that. So that was my thinking, is if we could have a good opening tournament, maybe we could prove to people that we're just as good and we deserve. And at large, possibly if we're in the top 3 or 4 in the region. But now we'll just have to see.
Well, Denison certainly is helping you, 19-3 on the season. Stevens is having a good season as well. Nothing to shake a stick at in those 2 games, and it'll certainly help you along the way. When you look at what you've got left, you've got Hollins at home, Bridgewater at home, Emory Henry on the road, Virginia Wesleyan at home. What's your biggest challenge?
All of them. Obviously, I'm going to say anyone can beat anyone. Hollins gave us a great game at their place early on a few weeks ago, whatever it was. you just can't overlook anyone. You just have to take it. Obviously, Emory and Henry is probably going to be the game everybody's circling because they're right below us, and it's on the road up there, and they're really good at home, and it's going to be tough. But if you ask me, I'm just trying to beat Hollins right now, and then we'll get to the next game. Bridgewater's been playing well. They beat EMU last week at home and at Bridgewater, and you just can't it's all about who's going to be playing their best basketball now, and it doesn't matter where you are in the league. You have to bring your A game.
The ODAC men have always been kind of one of those conferences everyone talks about as one of the top in the country, though it's down a little bit this year. The top has kind of come back to the middle a little bit. The women seem to be building just a bit. It seems to be starting to get deeper. It's starting to get a little bit more interesting. But how far has this conference come in the 17 years you've been involved?
Well, I've been here 13.
13, I'm sorry. I don't know where I came up with 17. How did I do that?
Me older. I don't know, but I hope I'm still here 17. But it's I think it's come a long way. I think certainly the bottom teams have gotten better, and then you look at the top 8, and honestly, top 8 or 9, you just can't pick. It's just been a lot of fun because everyone makes you better. You have to be a better. I'm much improved as a coach from being in this conference, especially in the last 5 or 6 years. Everybody works really hard, and you have no choice but to work hard and get better. And, it's a challenge, and I appreciate all I've learned from all my colleagues, and I hope that we can all finish strong and just make it a fun tournament.
I figured out where I had it at 17. It's overall 17 years. Those few years at the beginning at Maine Farmington and Shawan, I got stuck in my head. By the way, I know Maine a little bit. You went from Maine Farmington eventually down to Guilford. Clearly, you were trying to find warmer weather.
Absolutely. That one winter was all it took. I couldn't handle it too much. And
possibly civilization.
Yeah. Yeah, well, there wasn't much more civilization in Murfreesboro, North Carolina, but at least it was close to Virginia Beach.
Well, that's true. Yeah, that's true. Speaking of which, though, you guys are getting snow today, are you not?
No, actually, we're not.
Oh, okay.
It's not yet. I haven't. Maybe some flurries, but not yet. So doing all right.
It's been a crazy year, to say the least. Well, Coach, I appreciate you coming on the show. Appreciate you taking the time. Certainly fascinating to see how this is all shaken out, as it were, with 4 games left to go. It's going to be a fun race, and looking forward to seeing how it all plays out at the Salem Civic Center. As always, though, we give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you have to those who may be tuning in?
Just thank you for having me, and thanks for all you do for men's and women's Division III basketball, because you make us feel special, and it's very much appreciated.
Well, thank you, Coach. I appreciate the kind words. Good luck the rest of the way. Looking forward to seeing how it all plays out, and talking maybe a little bit more about the Guilford women's team, hopefully in the postseason.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, Coach. Take care of yourself.
You too. Bye-bye.
Stephanie Flamini joining us from Hoopsville, from Guilford here on Hoopsville. It's an interesting race there in the ODAC this season. Lynchburg's in the mix, Emory Henry's in the mix, Eastern Mennonite's in the mix, and those are the teams supposed to be leading the way. Guilford's got the lead right now, and they got the tiebreaker on Lynchburg, so they can stay tied with Lynchburg. Remember, ODAC plays a non-traditional double round robin. They'll play a double round robin with, I think it's about 2/3 of the teams roughly, and then the other third you'll play a single game with. They played only a single game with Lynchburg this season, so that one win is the tiebreaker for Guilford should they stay tied. Emory Henry, though, would love to change things. They're a game back. And again, Eastern Mennonite, Washington Lee, and Bridgewater are at 7-5, a total of 3 games back. So, 4 to play, lots to play for, as it were, lots to figure out. We'll see how this shakes out. The top of the ODAC race on both the men's and women's side, certainly fascinating. When we come back, we'll go to the WBCA Center Court, have that interview with the executive director, Daniel Donahue, that we were supposed to run on the Hoopsville Marathon, but it could not find a good spot for it. That will be our WBCA Center Court segment. I actually taped with her in San Antonio. It's a little bit more, a little longer than we anticipated, but we hope you'll enjoy it nonetheless. We thought about breaking it up, but to be honest with you, didn't have time to get that creative. So we hope you'll enjoy the interview. It's rather interesting to hear her take on the WBCA, her take on women's basketball, her take on Division III, and, of course, hear where she came from and how she got this job. And I just saw it. We will get a look afterward. We'll get a look at how Rochester won it all against Chicago today in dramatic fashion. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA and ABC studios. Coming up, our interview with WBCA Executive Director Danielle Donahue. Coming up on Hoopsville.
I am now joined here in San Antonio by the head of the WBCA, Danielle Donahue. And first and foremost,
we've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
With every basket and every stop, the skill of elite student athletes will be on display. The sights, the sounds, the intensity of an NCAA championship. It all comes down to this moment, and the winner takes it all. Be there to share the experience with your family and friends. The 2016 NCAA Division III Men's Basketball Championship, March 18th and 19th at Salem Civic Center in Salem, Virginia. Visit ncaa.com/tickets to score your championship seats today.
I used to never really talk. Ever. I was scared and shy. It was hard to look at people's faces. I was afraid if I said something wrong, everyone would laugh at me. But then I started to play golf with Special Olympics. I made friends and won lots of gold medals. But I learned more than just playing golf. Special Olympics helped me to find my voice. And now everyone else is speechless.
Something I discovered in myself is that if I have a goal, then I can accomplish it.
It's a well-rounded experience.
At a Division III school, you primarily a student athlete, so the school is really shaped around you developing yourself as a complete individual.
It helps a lot that you have a family with your team that can guide you.
I'm a current Division III student athlete, and I remember how intimidating the first year of college can be.
So if you're a first-year student athlete and nervous about coming out as LGBTQ, I pledge to stand by your side as your ally.
If you can play Division III.
We are Division III student athletes, and you can be too. If you can play in Division III.
Welcome back to Hoopsville. This is Danielle Donahue, Executive Director of the WBCA. And we are a proud partner and very excited about all the future broadcasts. Here's Dave.
Thank you, Danielle. Of course, you're going to hear from her momentarily. You are listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA and ABC studios. Interact with us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us, hoopsville at D3Hoops.com. Join us on Facebook, facebook.com/Hoopsville. Calling this a semi-super show. Just to a little bit of play on words. Obviously, we're pre-gaming the Super Bowl by talking basketball. Not to mention the fact you can't call this a super show because we just did the marathon on Thursday and went 14-plus hours talking basketball on a 12-hour scheduled show. So a little bit of play on words there. Of course, the fundraiser was part of a lot of that, and we hope you'll consider helping us out. We do this show because we want to, but to do this show comes out of our pockets. We've gotten a lot of help over the years from the WBCA now and the NABC in the past, and it's been well received, and we thank them. But there's still a lot more expenses to be involved. New cameras and new computers, travel, for example, when flights across the country are not cheap. As a result, we've got the fundraiser going, and it's going to go for 3 more weeks. We are 37% of the way to the goal with 22 days remaining. All right, we're a shade under 2,800 for a goal of 7,500. Honestly, we'd like to go past 7,500. Love to raise well more than 7,500. We're asking your help to do it. Please contribute to the Hoopsville Fundraiser. We will tweet out the link during the next segment. You can also find it on our homepage. You can find it on our show page, and you can certainly find it as well on Hoopsville and elsewhere. Yeah, lots of places to watch it. So please do so. Again, we'd like to raise more, and we want your help in doing so. By the way, just got a chance to see the winner from Rochester. Talk about the perfect bounce. It's the best way to describe it. We will show it to you coming up after the interview. But here is my chance. We talked on when I was at the San Antonio NCAA convention. I got a chance to talk to the executive director of the WBCA, who came on board with us here at Hoopsville this season, the WBCA and the WBCA Center Court. Got a chance to talk to her about the WBCA, her now new leadership role, and what she expects and what she thinks at the Division III level. Very great, a very interesting and in-depth conversation with her. The interview goes a little long. We were going to break it up in the middle, but honestly, we're just going to keep it rolling along. Forgive any marathon references you may hear. Again, this was supposed to air on Thursday and was unable to get it into the show. But it is certainly worth listening to now. Here is my interview, Danielle Donahue, in San Antonio, from her point of view at the WBCA Center Court. Here it is.
I am now joined here in San Antonio by the head of the WBCA, Danielle Donahue. And first and foremost, thanks for joining me.
Well, thanks for having me, Dave. I'm excited to visit with you and certainly excited about all the progress with our sport.
Can you just give everybody officially what your title is?
I'm the executive director of the WBCA.
Nice and short.
Nice and short, and I'm in my 17th month right now.
It's so like a baby.
Yes, I've surpassed the 12-month mark and feeling pretty good now. Was drinking from a fire hose there for a while.
I'm sure. Taking over into a large organization like the WBCA is, I'm sure, a daunting task. We'll talk about that in a minute. But
exciting.
Sure. But I want to first touch on the fact that I want to welcome officially with you here WBCA to Hoopsville, and obviously we've had you on board for several weeks by the point this interview airs, but wonderful to have you guys on board the show, and I appreciate you guys coming on board.
Well, we appreciate the partnership, and certainly Division III is a very big priority for our membership and certainly for our board of directors. So we're pleased to be partners and really appreciate the time to visit with all of you.
I've gotten a sense in the Division III ranks of a buzz since you came on board, that there's a feeling that this group is ready to take a nice leap forward as an organization. Obviously, I'm very familiar with the NABC over the years that I've worked with them, but even there's a split between Division III and Division I to some extent. I'm gathering the sense, and anybody can correct me if I'm wrong, that there's a split probably in the WBCA as well, but that is coming together, and that's the buzz I'm getting, is that the full organization's embracing everybody.
Well, I certainly hope so. We're working very hard to try to unify every level of our sport. And when I came on board a little more than 17 months ago, I was really excited to be able to serve every level of our game. And I wanted to dig into every level. I wanted to make sure that every level felt valued, and I wanted to make sure that whatever the unique aspects of each level were, that we knew them, and that we were able to serve them and equip those coaches properly. And at the beginning of my time, I did a listening tour. I was fortunate to be able to join the women's basketball committee, the Division III women's basketball committee, at their finals, their Final Four. Yeah. They then thankfully invited me back to have a business meeting with them in Indianapolis. Right. And I learned a great deal from them. And they didn't sugarcoat anything to me. They definitely gave me some very valuable feedback, which I really was very appreciative of their candor, and also just the truth behind maybe where the WBCA has lacked in the past and what they would hope we could do in the future. And then over the summer, I visited with one of the conferences in Division III, the group of coaches for a particular conference, and sat into their conference meeting, and that was a difficult meeting as well. And those coaches, thankfully, were very, very kind and excited about what they do on a daily basis, the value that they bring to their student athletes. But again, they shared with me ways that they felt the WBCA had not met their needs in the past. And it was good for me to hear in all of those meetings. I came back to my staff. We've had huddle after huddle after huddle about Division III and certainly all of our other divisions as well, and the other levels that we represent. And we made some changes. You know, one of those changes that I'm really proud of is we created a staff lead or a staff liaison for every level and every division. And those leads and then a backup lead are not myself or my chief operating officer. It's other people from my senior staff team. And so myself as the executive director and my chief operating officer, we both now will support every level and every division, but then we have folks on our staff that are focused on each division every day. And I think that we've seen some great progress since then. The other thing I'd really like to highlight is just the great work of our board of directors. We went through some bylaws changes. We went through different people being elected and others rolling off. And certainly right now, we do have 3 members of the Division III membership who serve on our board of directors. And all 3 of them are power players. Yes, let me tell you that. We have Christy Thomas Cuddy, Pat Manning, and Mary Beth Spurk.
Yeah. You got a trio there.
I have a trio right there. And they have done a fantastic job of really rolling their sleeves up, working on our board, making recommendations to our board as to what we need at the Division III level to support those coaches. And we're making great progress. And another nugget that I think is really powerful is historically in the WBCA, we've never had a non-Division I coach on the executive committee.
Interesting.
And Christy Thomas Cuddy serves on our executive committee now as a member of the Division III membership, but also as a member of our driving committee that represents our board of directors when they're not in session.
You bring up a lot of interesting things there. Let me go back to that last one right there. Is that now a long-term thing that you will always have representatives from other divisions on that committee, or was it a happenstance type of thing?
No, it was a change in the bylaws, and it was important to our board to make sure that we had more representatives speaking for more parts of our membership, in addition to just Division I. And certainly, we're going to still support Division I like we always have. But we are investing now heavily in Division II, Division III, junior college, community college, NAIA, all the way down to the high school ranks, renewed partnerships with the WNBA. And we also have 7 different countries in terms of some international members.
That's pretty impressive.
And so I'm excited for the growth that I hope that we will continue to see. But for Division III, there's a bright future.
Yeah. Well, that's the interesting thing, too, is, you know, the NABC has the exact same thing from my experiences. You have a majority of your coaches in the college ranks, let's be specific, the NCAA ranks, obviously come from Division III just based on numbers, because Division III is the biggest division. Yet it seems to get, I hate to use the term least amount of representation, but you say 3 members on the board, for example, and it's not uncommon. We're certainly not trying to reinvent the wheel in some case. But it does sound like you've got some very honest opinions from those in Division III about their representation.
Yes.
And it sounds like the representation for that division seems to be growing, even if it doesn't seem like it numerically.
True, and I would say that for Division III, in terms of the entire pool of potential members that are in Division III, so all the coaches that are out there for women's basketball in D3, a little less than half of them are members of the WBCA.
Interesting.
And so this is an opportunity, it's an area of growth for us, and I hope that when we serve this group better, that they will respond and they'll see a value to being a member of the WBCA, and that they'll want to be members. We need a much bigger group of members from the Division III ranks.
And certainly, it's an interesting dynamic that you don't have you don't have a majority of the division, or a vast majority, I should say, representing the WBCA. And you're right, you would think in that coaching ranks, it's got some pull. WBCA does have some pull with the NCAA. You're the communication body, essentially, for this organization. And we've seen that in a number of things like the rule changes. The WBCA certainly had a role in that. and some other things. What's the goal for your point of view in that role of representing your coaches moving forward?
Well, I think specifically with the NCAA, we do have very strong relationships with those at the NCAA. We work very well with them. Our goal is to be an asset to every committee that speaks on women's basketball or governs women's basketball in any way. We want to make sure that there is a very solid, succinct perspective and position from the WBCA that is elevated to each governing body and each committee. We want to be very clear. These are our positions. This is what the coaches believe is in the best interest of the game moving forward. And as we all know, the rightful leaders in our game are our coaches. Our coaches are the ones that are in the trenches with their student athletes. Our coaches are the ones who are the teachers and the mentors, the examples for our student athletes. They know what our student athletes need. They know how their program should run, and they know the power of what our sport represents, not only to the student athlete, but to the greater society, whether it's in their community or whether it's in the United States or around the world. Our coaches should be the leaders for our sport. And so from the WBCA's perspective, we are really boiling everything down and trying to be as succinct as possible on our position statements and making sure that we do all the research we need to do. We're trying to pull together all the people who represent all the different committees and have thoughtful deliberation and discussion. And then in a strategic way, our coaches are forming positions, and the WBCA is elevating those positions. And whether it's myself sitting on a board or being invited to some of these meetings, or whether it's other members of ours that sit on various committees. As you know, the Rules Committee is made up of mostly coaches from Division 1, 2, and 3.
Chaired right now by Division 3 coach.
Yeah, Brad Duckworth is the chair. And so it's important that we're united. It's important that our coaches aren't all over the place with their recommendations. It's far stronger when we take the time, have those important discussions ahead of time, and we unite and we have a succinct position. And you saw that in the progression of our rules this past year.
Progression.
It was
That's
massive.
a tame word. I was going to say the leap forward with the rules changes.
But you know what? The WBCA started that.
Sure.
We started that. And our coaches, the positions that our coaches came to, we have a board of directors working group focused on playing rules and officiating. We came up with positions. Those positions were elevated to the competition committee of the WCBO LLC. They were discussed. They were then elevated to the WCBO LLC. They were then elevated to the rules committee. And then there were various surveys that the rules committee conducts to make sure that athletics directors get to have a say, that senior women's administrators get to have a say, and that coaches get to have a say. And with our coaches' responses to the survey and our very clear position from the WBCA, it was actually beautiful. We all came together, we were united, and we made some huge decisions, but moved forward as a family. And I think that's the key.
A couple interesting questions about the rules. First and foremost, we'll get to what you've heard since we're about a little over halfway through the season, but I'm kind of curious because the one thing that did seem to come out of the rule changes when you look at the men and the women was it seems like the sports are literally splitting apart and going down their own paths and becoming almost like a lacrosse. It's a bit of an extreme example, I realize.
It's a little extreme.
Yeah, but I want to at least point out that the rules are diverse enough now that we kind of have two different tracks.
But not for long.
Well, I didn't think for long. We got to see what the men do. But my thought is there, I hear them say that there's work with the men's group to say, hey, this is what we're doing. Would you like to join us? Or, hey, this is what we're doing. Would you like to join us? Back and forth. But then you also see these massive changes. How hard is it to either convince the other group, and it might be the NBC convincing you guys, that they want to do certain things with the rules, and how hard is it to then say, you know what, we're doing our own thing here, and convince the NCAA to let you do your own thing?
Well, a couple of things, and those are great questions. We all have to remember that the NCAA is its members.
Absolutely. As the convention example,
And the NCAA, the committee representatives are members.
Right.
They are administrators, they are coaches,
Exactly.
they are people who are coming from various campuses to represent their delegations, but also to represent, when you sit in any of these committees, they always say, let's check your university hat at the door, and let's make decisions based on what's in the best interest of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's important for your viewers to remember that the NCAA is not this board of people that is not on campuses. No, the NCAA is the people that are on the campuses,
Exactly.
and we're made up of the members, and the members are making these decisions. With something as specific as the rules committees, and I've been very fortunate in different roles to be in the rules committee meetings or be an invited guest to the rules committee. I was not a voter, but I was an invited guest.
A very interested participant.
Yeah, now for probably the last 4 to 5 years.
Okay.
And so I have seen some various changes, and I've seen some momentum be gained for different things, and other ideas shut down.
Sure.
And one of the things that I've been most impressed with is the rules committees, the women's rules committee, women's basketball rules committee, the men's basketball rules committee. They meet together multiple times while they're both in Indianapolis that week.
Right.
And so they meet collectively, and then they separate, and then they meet collectively again, and then they separate
again.
and they meet collectively.
Yeah.
And they don't want to make decisions in a vacuum. They want feedback, because there are certain rules that our men are taking from the women's game.
Absolutely.
Because through all the data that we have, they now know, hey, you know what, this is a good decision.
Agreed.
And one example of that is the 30-second shot clock.
Which I
Right?
completely endorse.
Which was a fantastic move.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
I agree.
And then one of the decisions on the women's side that we took from our men is the 10-second backcourt in recent years.
Endorse.
And you know what? That was a good move too.
Yeah, exactly.
But each sport used the other one
Gotcha.
to say, hey, share the data
You go
behind
test that,
this.
and we'll let us know how it works.
And how is it working?
Yeah.
And there was wonderful conversation and deliberation, and that's the beauty of those committees working together. Now, specifically with some of the drastic changes that were made on the women's side this year,
Yeah.
you know, the women's committee had some very difficult decisions ahead of them, and they decided, because the women's side of all the committees and different constituencies, that we all had so many discussions leading up to those very difficult decisions, and we all were united, that committee had some courage and stepped out and said, you know what, we're going to make a decision that we believe is in the best interest of the women's game. And there was great conversation on the men's side, men and women together. And I do believe, one example, the 4 quarters.
Yes.
I think it's just a matter of time before our men say,
Probably agree
hey,
with that, yeah. We'll do that too.
We'll do that too. But it, you know, every committee works differently.
Yes.
Every committee is unique in terms of the folks that are serving on it and
Especially
the perspectives.
As it's turning over too.
And it's turning over. There's always a third of the committee always turning over, which is wonderful and healthy.
Yes.
In governance.
But changes the dynamic every time.
And it does. And so I think there's plenty of ways that our game is going to maybe separate a little bit and then come right back, and separate a little bit and come right back, and it's a great thing to be able to have a partner like our men, and all the men that I talk to that govern men's basketball and the women that govern men's basketball, they say, hey, we're watching the women's game too.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, the people who are governing men's basketball are watching our game, and the people who are governing our game, we need to be watching the men's game as well. There are things that we can both learn and help each other with, and together, we're a family.
How has the feedback been per the rules? You know, we're talking quarters, we're changing the foul situation, changing timeouts. There was a litany of rules, and we did a Hoopsville special about all those changes that went into place,
there were a lot
including
of them.
Nuances like playing music every time the ball goes out of bounds, essentially. But
which is great. I think that's a good one too.
It's a little crazy sometimes if someone's not sure what they're doing.
Well, that's
but
true.
That's at a different rank too. But what's been the feedback, though, from coaches, from fans, from anybody else? What's been the feedback you've heard about? As we said, we're a little over halfway through the season here from all of this.
Yeah, and Dave, I'll start with when these decisions were made, most of them were made with an intentionality, and the intentionality was to increase the pace of play, increase freedom of movement, reduce physicality, and make sure that our game could fit easily within a 2-hour window, so that spectators and media folks would be very comfortable that our game could be conducted within a succinct time period.
Sure.
And everybody was very aware that game times were creeping longer and longer and longer, and that was difficult for everybody, fans included.
Absolutely.
And so as these changes were put in place, there were various models studied. Many of these rules came from the WNBA and NBA, and as everybody knows, the WNBA and NBA have the same rules, right?
Just believe it or not.
They do. And also FIBA in terms of the international rules of basketball. And so when you see an international game, you see how beautiful the flow is, and how skilled the players have to be, and how quickly they've got to get the ball up and down the floor, and they really highlight those skilled players who can shoot threes and who are able to not only bang, but have just a real finesse around the game. And so as these rules were made, it was a very thoughtful and intentionality, in terms of how it happened. The feedback that I've received is actually very good. I think people are excited about the 4 quarters. They're excited about having an excitement at the end of the first quarter and the second quarter and the third quarter, and the buzzers going down, and an opportunity for a team to gain some momentum and score right then before the end of whatever that period is. The foul situation, I think, has been really big in terms of speeding it up. We got rid of 1-and-1s. The 2-shot fouls.
You don't have a freight train at the end of a half for 5, 6, 7 minutes.
No, and that has been really good. I'll say, in terms of maybe some constructive feedback that we've received, for those folks that are dealing with the media format, there has been some concern with how long the media breaks or stoppages or timeouts are.
They were long,
And part of that is because the new format, we reduced.
You took one of the breaks out.
A couple of the timeouts, a couple of the media timeouts, and we even reduced
subtle little nice things.
Some coaches' timeouts as well. And the coaches were on board with that. I mean, they want the game to be exciting for the fans and the student athletes. And
we should point out, by the way, the Division III will play with those media timeouts once we get to the NCAA tournament, if they aren't playing with them already.
Yes, and so that's one bit of a little bit of worry or criticism. Is just the length of those media timeouts. And then secondarily, one of the areas that wasn't necessarily addressed with a vengeance yet is post play, and the physicality in the lane, physicality in the post area. And there was a recommitment to calling the rules as written in the post area. And I do think that as time goes on, this will not be a rules change year in May. We'll have another 2 years until we change the rules again.
That needs to happen, right?
But I know in terms of a number of the committees that I sit on, I mean, there is data being collected right now. People are studying the post area, and certainly the feedback from the coaches will be very, very important as we work toward, are there any tweaks we need to make in that post area?
Well, and interesting enough, on the men's side, they are kind of dealing with that already. They have added some things so you guys, there's that playoff in some sense, the other direction. Completely shifting gears, you have the interesting situation where you have a very strong mix of male and female coaches.
We do.
In women's basketball. It's something obviously they don't deal with a lot in the NABC. That's a whole nother topic. But that also breeds in its own a different relationship, where you maybe all not like-minded, if that makes any sense, just from coming from two very different points of view. How do you guys interact with that? How do you embrace it, I'm sure, at some points, but at the same time try and harness it as well?
Yeah, and Dave, that's a good question too. I'll tell you, we have some wonderful men that coach women's basketball and do it and with such honor and integrity, and they are amazing examples for our student athletes. And just like our men, we have some amazing women who are leading and coaching women's basketball today, that for many of them, they were former student athletes.
Yes.
Or former participants in some way in programs, and they've decided to stay with us through their careers. Yeah. And so from the WBCA perspective, 45% of our membership is male.
Large number. Large
number. And you're probably aware, and your viewers are certainly aware, that back when Title IX came into play in 1972, there was a far, far, far higher number of females coaching females.
Yeah.
And that's not where we are right now. The WBCA, absolutely, we support all of our members, male and female. We're proud of all of our members, male and female. But I can tell you, this is something we are watching, and this is something that our board is very committed to. Our male and female leaders are very committed to this, because their student athletes, they want to make sure these student athletes know that you can be a coach if you want.
Right.
You can be an athletic administrator if you want. You can be an official if you want.
Yes.
You can be in the media talking about our sport if you want.
Yes.
And you are valuable to the family, and you are valuable to the enterprise and the industry, and we have to retain our student athletes into the industry. Now, the crazy thing that's happened is our student athletes have now gone on to every single kind of business that you can imagine. And sports has become a pipeline for leaders. There are two great pipelines in our country today to build leaders. One is sports, and two is our military.
Agreed.
And for women and men. And so one of the things that our board is very committed to is just making sure that for those young student athletes that are coming through our ranks, that they know if they want to stay with our game, you can have a great career, you can have a very fulfilling life, you can have hopefully some balance with a family.
Sure.
But you will also have an opportunity to impact your student athletes for their lives. And what a special thing it is to be a coach today. The coaches that I have been around as I have grown up and been in the industry, these people are amazing leaders and mentors and examples. The voice of the coach in our society has never been stronger. Corporate partners are getting coaches to teach their corporate people how to build teams.
Coming in and doing motivational speeches. And
and how do you build teams, and how do you understand that, you don't have to win every battle. You need to win the war.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And how do you put
Undefeated
a game plan
matter.
together?
Right.
And so sports today is on such a huge platform. We have so much exposure today. And I think from the WBCA's perspective, we want to be very, very focused and very encouraging to our student athletes to ensure that they know, if you want to be a coach, we want to help you be a coach.
Sure.
If you want to be an administrator in this business, we're going to help you there. If you want to be an official, we're going to help you there. You want to be a media personality, we're going to help you there, because we need to harness the passion of our student athletes as the pipeline continues and as the hierarchy continues to those people that are sitting in these highest chairs making decisions. You better believe when I'm sitting in all these different NCAA meetings, there's a different element of passion that comes through from decision makers when they say, you know what, I was a student athlete a number of years ago, and they make their decisions with that consideration. And it's so important that we keep those people that have experienced the beauty and the joy and the incredible opportunity of being a student athlete at the collegiate level. We've got to keep them in our business.
No, it makes sense. And obviously the SAC's representation, especially in the Division III level, Division I and II is adding that, but the voice that they have in Division III certainly fosters that as well.
The SAC has been very impressive.
Yeah.
Very impressive at every level. Those student athletes.
They take it very seriously.
They take it very seriously. The voice of the student athlete and the power of their voice is certainly growing.
Impressive. Yeah, absolutely agree with you. In fact, Division III even has one on their management council. voting on their management council, I think is very impressive. And quickly about yourself, we didn't get a chance at the beginning. Everybody, you are a student athlete of the NCAA.
Yes.
You've had an interesting road to this position, including spending a few years with an icon of the sport. Can you give everybody a little bit of your background, starting back in college?
Sure. I grew up in Georgia and was very fortunate to play at Georgia Tech. I was an industrial and systems engineering major.
Wow.
And thought I would go into business.
Yeah, this is you're building things. It's a little different.
Yeah, it's the same stuff. It's just a different business.
Exactly.
And I had a wonderful experience at Georgia Tech. I played for Agnes Baronato. She was my coach, and learned some great things. I was on the 5-year plan.
Yeah. That's not a bad plan.
Graduated in
it's not
5 years. I had the opportunity to study abroad, which was wonderful. And then when I graduated, I really had to think about, do I want to go into sports as a business, or do I want to go into corporate business? And I said, you know what, I love sports. I want to go into sports. Was fortunate to have an opportunity to go to Tennessee.
It's a pretty good program to join.
Worked for Pat Summitt for 7 years, was a graduate assistant, and then was a director of basketball operations.
That's great.
And then an assistant athletics director for basketball operations. And so from the age of 22 to 29, I got to learn from Pat.
That's amazing.
And what a blessing that was to me.
Sure.
At 29, right in there, I had an opportunity to leave and begin building with a great team a WNBA franchise, which became the Atlanta Dream.
Yeah.
And moved back to Atlanta, worked for the Dream as the executive vice president.
Wonderful.
And love the WNBA. What a value it is and how important it is to have a professional league for women's basketball in this country.
Agreed with you.
And the WNBA is about to celebrate, this next year will be their 20th season.
It's incredible.
Can you believe that?
I can't believe it's been around. Honestly, I can't. It feels much shorter.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
And so I'm really excited for them, and had a wonderful time with the Atlanta Dream. And then there was a period of time where we were being sold to a new owner.
Sure.
And there was an opportunity for me to be able to be recruited up to the Big East Conference, and was
all
fortunate.
Before it became chaotic.
That's right. I joined the Big East Conference family.
Sure.
Moved to Providence, Rhode Island.
Wow, there's a change.
I learned how to eat the best Italian food and seafood of my life. It was wonderful.
Where was that all your life, right?
Oh, I was like, I have missed out. But
I can understand that.
Providence was awesome,
Sure.
and the Big East family, they were so good to me. I was the associate commissioner for women's basketball, and at that time, the Big East had 16 teams.
It was big.
Some of the coaches that I was able to serve include Gino Ariema, Muffet McGraw, Vivian Stringer, Jeff Walls, Mike Carey, Jose Fernandez, you name it, Kim Barnes-Arico. I mean, we had Harry Peretta, Quentin Hillsman.
You forget about all those.
And one interesting nugget was my college coach, Agnes Baronato, was the coach at Pitt.
So now you're overseeing her.
And so I also worked with my college coach in a new relationship where, yes, I was serving her from the conference level.
That is outstanding.
And I'll tell you, some of those other, I mean, Phyllis Mangina. Wow. I mean, we just had so many unbelievable coaches.
I was going to say some of the great names in women's basketball coaching at the top rank.
And Terry Flanoy at Georgetown. I mean, it was a really, really special time for me to then understand, how do you be fair and impartial and serve 16 very different programs, very different
points of view, different
operating budgets, different models,
different aspirations.
But the unifying factor back then was the crown jewel of that conference was basketball.
You're right.
Men's basketball and women's basketball.
You're absolutely right. Yep.
And it was a wonderful opportunity for me. I had an opportunity to work side by side Danny Gavitt.
Okay.
He was the associate commissioner for men's basketball.
Yes.
And he now is the vice president of men's basketball at the NCAA.
Interestingly enough.
And so Danny was a wonderful mentor for me and a great friend. He taught me a lot. And I also had a colleague, Barbara Jacobs, who has been in the business forever and was the head coach at Syracuse and then got into administration, and she taught me a great deal as well. And so my time at the Big East was wonderful. As you know, 4 years into it, the Big East reconstituted.
Okay, that's one way of saying that.
And so as we split, we became the Big East and the American.
Right.
And so our conference office became the office for the American.
Right.
And so I was honored to work at the American for a year. Learned a whole bunch of great lessons there.
I'm sure.
And
learning curve.
Yeah, and worked for 2 great commissioners, John Marinato and Mike Oresco.
Wonderful.
Learned a lot from them. And then when this opportunity opened up for me about 17 months ago, this was an opportunity that it was such a blessing to be considered. Mm-hmm. And it was very humbling to think that maybe I could be valuable to the family of coaches. And what an honor it is for me every day to serve 4,000 coaches.
Yeah, true.
And I love every day. There's no same day twice.
No, I'm sure there isn't.
But I'm very blessed to have a very, very impressive staff at the WBCA office.
Yeah.
And I'm proud of what we do. And we've made some changes, and we've refocused on some things that we needed to. We've done a whole bunch of data and research projects to try to really hone in on the coach of today at every level and their journey and what a coaches association should provide their members.
Interesting.
And so I'm excited to roll out some of those things at the upcoming convention in April.
Yeah.
And I hope that all of our members at every level will be excited with what we're going to roll out.
Well, as I said at the beginning, it certainly seems like there's excitement in the ranks, as it were. 2 questions before we let you go. One, your role here at the convention. Obviously, there's a lot going on. Division III, not a lot on the table for basketball per se. Excuse me, as we talk. Nothing's being voted on. Nothing came out of the issue session that really seemed to be basketball oriented. So I know that, your focus has probably been somewhere else. But is this more about just making sure you stay in the mix, make sure you still kind of have your face in front of people, so that things aren't forgotten in some sense, if that makes any sense?
Yeah. I mean, any time the greater body of the NCAA comes together and meets, I think it's important that the WBCA has a presence.
Sure.
And that we are visible.
Hey, don't forget.
Don't forget we're here.
Yeah.
We are, my number 2 and we're dividing and conquering a whole bunch of different meetings.
Laps, there's a lot of places
we're
to
taking
hit.
notes. We're definitely, we're doing our part to make sure that we are on top of a lot of the different issues, and we're able to then communicate back to our membership properly and the different pieces in our membership that are driving different issues for us.
Okay.
We've sat in lots of different meetings, and certainly it's important to then set up meetings that are outside of the meetings.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, I know that very well.
To just check in with different people. And just make sure that you stay in front of them, and make sure that you create those lines of communication so that when something does come up, that you're on their mind and that they want to reach out and make sure they communicate with you.
Oh, hey, we ought to contact so-and-so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so I feel very good about what Shannon and I have done this week here, and I feel very good about making sure that we have a whole bunch of NCAA staff that we work with and we have great relationships with to help facilitate making sure we understand what decisions are made, and we have more in-depth conversations once rulings are made or votes are going to be taken.
Makes sense.
We want to know the depth of why is that important, and how does that affect not only our coaches but the institutions that they represent.
Makes complete sense. The other thing too, obviously big celebration coming up in April, which is a little strange for Division III to be considering. We'll have 16 days between championship, semifinals and championship for women's basketball, everybody playing on the same court, WNBA, NBA arena. The difference between the men's and the women's is that the women will be on the same court as the D1 women, a chance to celebrate their championship. I know that's something the WNBA not the WBCA and others are thrilled about, to
We
getting this
are.
opportunity to celebrate all three divisions.
We are. You know, there's been a number of folks that have led a whole bunch of the women's basketball committees over the years that have said, this would be a great thing. Is there a time where we could pull D1, D2, and D3 together and have a celebration and have a combined championship? And we're thrilled that it's going to be this April. We, from the WBCA's perspective, we have all sorts of great programming that we've set up at our convention.
I'm sure you're pulling out all the stops.
We are pulling out all the stops, and we've created a couple of different opportunities for our members that have never gone to a convention or have never been a member at the Division III level.
Sure.
And hopefully they'll consider at a discounted rate coming and joining us, so that hopefully they'll come and join us in the future again.
Sure, makes sense.
But this year should be very, very special, and I think that it will be awesome to showcase the best of the best from all three divisions in the same city, on the same court. We're excited. We are excited. Our board is excited, and I'm sure it will be very special, and I think our student athletes will really feel the energy of having all three divisions there.
I think we're all excited. I know I'm excited about it, but I think one of the little things in Division III that's kind of going around is we may have the best player on the court from all three divisions.
Well, yes.
An interesting little twist you don't normally get to say.
Yes, I you know,
Sydney Moss could make some impressions if they get there.
I have to be impartial,
I know
as
you do.
you know. However,
I'm biased towards this other division named 3.
I did attend the D3 championship last year.
That's right.
And I got to see her play for the first time, and she is special.
Yeah,
she
and
is
the
special.
whole team's special.
The whole team is special. And
takes it to another level.
And I went to the Division II Elite 8 and was also there at the Division I Final Four last year, and so
there's good talent across the board. We shouldn't, by the way, dismiss the other divisions. There's great talent across the board.
Our student athletes, I mean, it's amazing. I was in a couple of conversations a few months back, and we were watching game film from 20 years ago for some of the other divisions, and it's remarkable to see how advanced our student athletes are at every division.
Oh, that's that'd
today
be fascinating.
Than 20 years ago.
Wow.
It was remarkable, and so yes, I think D3 has a lot to be proud of.
Yeah.
I was very excited, impressed with I thought it was a very well-run tournament. Yes. I thought Sydney was really good.
She is.
She was really good.
She's pretty good.
And and I'll tell you, the other thing with D3 that really stood out to me, the first time I visited with their women's basketball committee, there were 8 members on the committee, and 6 of the 8 members were coaches and administrators. And the depth of their consideration for all the details.
Former coaches who are now administrators.
It's really, I mean, Division III is in great hands. And there are some people who are leading that division in various ways that are invested in our sport and that they're really impressive. Sure. And I think our student athletes are really lucky to have them lead them.
Well, I certainly appreciate you taking all the time to join me here.
Well, thanks for having me.
I think I've had enough time on the show to take a break. So
okay, good.
Go back to the studio. But a tradition we have on the show is we always give our guests the final words. Any final thoughts you want to share with those who may be tuning in to this marathon of a show?
Sure. I'd begin by, Dave, thanks for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And then to everyone who's watching, I'm excited. I'm excited about the progress of the WBCA, and I'm excited about the progress across every division and every level of our sport. And I hope you know that we at the office of the WBCA are working tirelessly to make sure that every member of the WBCA, that you feel valued, and that we are working to serve you at whatever level you are in your career, whatever point in your career you are, whether you're a beginning coach or whether you are one of our legacy and most powerful coaches. Every single coach is important to us, and we are working hard to make sure that you are equipped to be your best every day. So please come and join us, and please know that we're ready to serve you.
Well said. Well, thank you so very much for joining me.
Thanks, Dave.
And And that was my interview with Danielle Donahue, the executive director for WBCA, when I was in San Antonio for the NCAA convention. Again, it was designed to air at the Hoopsville Marathon to give me a sizable break, but we had some overbooking and some other problems while we couldn't get that on. So I want to thank the WBCA for understanding and letting us run it today as part of the WBCA Center Court. Long, in-depth conversation, obviously, there with Danielle. Appreciate her taking the time to chat. Rather insightful as well. Clearly, Division III has spoken. And clearly, the division has told the WBCA they're tired of being forgotten about. That is what I have gathered from a lot of different things that I've heard in the offseason, in the regular season, and what I heard from Danielle. That division is spoken up, and good for them. Absolutely outstanding. They have gone to the WBCA and the rest and said, we want a place here, we think we're important, etc. And good on the WBCA, too, to respond accordingly. So good things ahead. And part of that is them coming on board here with Hoopsville. We want to thank them for doing so as well. Going to wrap up the show now. We told you about the Rochester make. We have that shot and that video. Forgive the quality. Apparently, the version that we got at D3 Hoops is the scrunched down SD version. Imagine this 16:9 picture that I've got here. Where are we here? Imagine this 16:9 picture scrunched down into 4:3, but not cut. And so it is what it is. I know Rochester's tried to tweet out their version several times, and I can't seem to get their version to work, but we will show you here. So here's the deal. 2.7 seconds left in overtime. In case you see the third period, that stands for overtime. Rochester is down to Chicago 76-74. They're on the line. They had been down 76-73, I believe. On the line to shoot two. Yeah, it has to be two because fouls are beyond the limit. So they had to have made one. They are shooting the second, and they are looking to. Hold on, I may have an update to this. Hold on, I may have a different version than the quality I have, so hang on tight. But basically, what I'm trying to get at is that they have they're shooting a free throw down 2.7 seconds left. Obviously, they need to do something here to solve that. He was shooting 3. Thank you, Pat. Pat's updating me here. Apologize. I'm trying to give you an update. All right. So we'll just show you what we got here. So he's shooting 3. He's got his third one coming, and they're down 2. So he's got to obviously miss this to get any shot at winning, because if he makes it with 2.7 seconds left, I don't know what the timeout scenario is, as it's not on the screen. Chicago most likely wins this by 1. Granted, there's several scenarios there that could play out, but they go for the miss. And what transpires next, to say the least, is simply phenomenal. Enjoy this one. This is how Rochester hands Chicago its 4th loss. We don't have any audio here, so I'll talk it through. Misses it, front iron, grabs a rebound, hits his teammate. 3 in the corner, nothing but net at the buzzer. Watch it again. Watch his teammate in the upper left. They know what the play is. Defender not there. Pop in the corner. Defender gets there, but it's too late. Big time 3 at the just unbelievable finish. Again, Rochester losing it, or winning, and Chicago losing its 4th in a row. Listen, you can draw that up any way twice on Sunday and hope it works. And I don't know how many times I've seen it not work. It worked on this Sunday. Unbelievable. Just incredible, to say the least. Well done, Rochester. We're going to wrap up the show here. Let me just quickly look. We had some interesting scores on the women's side of UAA as well. Let's see. At one point, Emory led WashU 26-19 at the end of the first. Eagles had made 3 3-pointers in the first quarter. That score has been updated, and oh, sorry, I don't have an update. It was at WashU leading, and they're now leading 66-56, 48 seconds left to go there. So despite Emory winning 26-19 to start in the first quarter, WashU outscores them 20-9 in the second quarter, playing pretty even second half, but WashU's going to escape from Emory with a win in women's basketball. Rochester earlier today had defeated Chicago 75-64. We had SUNY IT on the show earlier. They're going to win, it looks like, over Bryn Anthem. It's 75-67 with 47 seconds left to go in that game. Williams has a fight with Connecticut College here. It's 60-56 with 1:10 left to go. Looking for some other finals. Millsaps defeated Center 45-37. Let's see. I don't see. Well, let's see. LaGrange won again, and that's another big game for LaGrange at least to get that victory. So that's on women's side. Nothing else really jumping out at me. On men's side of things, we mentioned we obviously just showed you how Rochester beat Chicago. We should mention, by the way, that game got into overtime because Chicago finished on a 15-3 run to tie the game at 66 to force overtime in the first place. Guilford smoking Bridgewater 81-51. That's pretty good for them. LaGrange in a battle with William Peace late in the first half, 35-33. Emory defeated WashU. We mentioned that earlier, handing WashU its 6th straight loss. First time since 83-84, I believe, for that to have happened. Carnegie Mellon beat Brandeis. NYU barely got past Case Western Reserve, 80-79. Colby beats Hamilton in overtime. Hamilton had led some of that game. Colby wins 99-95. Middlebury beat Bowdoin 78-69. Bowdoin has been struggling as of late. And Middlebury has been surging just a little bit in a crazy NESCAC. And then some other scores that we don't have yet. Bowdoin now 9-10 have lost 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of their last 9. To say the least, they are struggling. They have lost 7 of their last 9 games. Middlebury, in the meantime, 14-8. Have won 3 in a row and 7 of their last 8 on the opposite side of that. So interesting play, to say the least. Rochester Athletics says that play, no, I know you keep saying that, guys. You're not. I don't know where it is. I keep looking for Rochester's version of the play, but we'll figure out how they figure it out. Anyway, we're going to wrap up the show. I want to thank our guests for appearing on the show, including Rucker Newark head coach, Joe Logren. I want to thank Wisconsin lacrosse's head coach as well, Coach Cable, for joining us on the show. From SUNY Poly, I want to thank Jessica Skelton for joining me on the show, obviously before their game. And then I want to thank Stephanie Flamini from Guilford for joining me. And, of course, Danielle Donahue from WBCA. We'll be back on the air Thursday, 7 o'clock Eastern Time. We are pretty much on the air 7 o'clock the rest of the season until the 28th, when we'll go on a little bit earlier to handle all the Selection Sunday responsibilities. And we'll have a special show on Monday the 29th as well. So keep an eye out for that. But 7 o'clock Eastern Time the rest of the way. Don't forget, you can interact with us on Twitter at D3Hoopsville and hashtag Hoopsville. Email us, hoopsville@d3hoops.com. Join us on Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville. Also on Instagram at D3Hoopsville as well. Don't forget about the Hoopsville fundraising campaign. We've raised about 37% of our goal, but we'd like to surpass our goal, to be honest. We want your help in doing so. There's plenty of perks you can choose as well to do it. Our goal is $7,500, and we're just a shade under $2,800. Please help us cover Division III basketball the way it deserves to be covered. We will start reminding you extensively about this as the season progresses. But if you could do that, it's on Indiegogo. We have plenty of links on our website and on Twitter and Facebook. So please help us out if you get the chance. I want to thank again the SIDs who helped us put this show together today, and look forward to working with more of you down the road. as well. I think that'll do it. Thank you so much for tuning in. We're going to get going and we'll get ready for the Super Bowl ourselves. We're a little bit late and want to get off the air. So thanks for tuning in, everybody. Hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, you know how to get a hold of us. If you have guest ideas, you know how to get a hold of us. Once again, Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com. From the WBCA and ABC studios, we'll see you back here on Thursday night.